Good morning. Good morning. If you take your seats. Good morning and welcome to the regular council meeting in the town of Qualicum Beach. I want to acknowledge that we're holding this meeting on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish people, in particular the Qualicum First Nation. We have the agenda, and there's a late item. It's on green sheets, and it's under 8E2. It's right next to Councillor Young's presentation. And then I'm withdrawing my notice of motion regarding the airport. Any other changes to the agenda? Then the agenda is adopted as amended. Then we have the consent agenda. Are there any items that council would like to pull and discuss separately? Then the consent agenda is also adopted by consent. Business arising from the minutes, there is none. Delegations. We'll start with the Qualicum District and Curling Club. Mr. Shaw and Mr. Snedden. Come on up.
Good morning. Your Honor, Mayor and councillors and town staff, thanks very much. My name is Stu Shaw. I'm the Finance Director for the Qualicum and District Curling Club, which is a non-profit organization with a volunteer board. I'm joined today by our Facilities Director, Daryl Snedden, and I send kind regrets from our President, John Evans, who was away on a previously planned trip. Thanks very much for your time and consideration in allowing us to present to you our annual 5-year capital plan, which is up here to the right here. Thanks for having that available for us. The Curling Club continues to be a very busy place with continued membership growth in addition of new leagues and events, creating a welcoming, fun, and inclusive facility enjoyed by, we're up to now 427 members of the community and area and individuals aged 8 to 92. With this growth, though, there is added pressure on our 61-year-old building, but with the efforts of our board, volunteers, and the town, especially the town, we have a well-run, functional, and attractive facility that serves the community extremely well. I have this slide here depicting our capital projections for the next 5 years. Prior to this, as you may recall, 2024 was a year with many mechanical upgrades, largely the result of regulatory requirements from Technical Safety BC. Although critical updates for safe operations, they were largely behind the scenes and not that apparent to the public and our membership. 2025 now are the actuals that we incurred this year, and these were largely overdue upgrades that were used to enhance the experiences of our membership. Our volunteers and contractors were very busy doing major upgrades to our lounge. Thanks to the town, the lounge flooring was replaced. The good news there is that a change in material from going from hardwood to carpet and the significant assistance of our volunteer labor, the cost of that project came in at approximately $7,500 under budget. That was at $20,000. It came in at $12,346. You'll see that number up there in 25. The club, while we were doing that project, did a number of projects on its own. Those included lighting, painting, TVs and cameras, plumbing, and artwork. It made a significant improvement with many compliments from our membership and visitors. For the ice area, we placed the worn-out ice scraper at our cost and the dehumidifier, which is a fairly big project that was, both those projects allowed us to improve the quality of our ice surface. The dehumidifier was funded from our joint reserve account. Our total expenditures for 2025 was $98,000. You'll see that there. For 2026, for this year, we have a big project planned, and that is our roof replacement. It's been the plan for the past 5 years. We had originally planned in 2023, but with the repairs that the town had done, we ended up pushing it back to this coming summer, and it would be a town-funded project as an upgrade to the building. In discussions with long-term members, the present roof is between 30 to 40 years old. It has served us very well, but is due for replacement. Our previous facilities director had met with town staff to review the project in the past, and there's discussions about its replacement with the addition of insulation going forward. As such, we obtained a written quote from a local reputable roofing company to remove the existing roof, replace it with a new roof with vapor barrier membrane, R30 insulation, and hidden gutters. They quoted both with shingles and metal, and the cost was similar in the $280,000 range. We believe the metal roof would be the preferred option, but that would be a town decision. We've discussed internally that the building would be a strong candidate for adding solar panels, but we have not done a quote on that. If panels were installed, savings realized from that could be used to offset some of the capital cost. The club understands this is a significant project, and we work with the town on any grants or other assistance which may be available through government and other aspects for such a project. So that's the item there in 2026. We have a couple small projects around replacing our oven, and we would also share in the cost of the roof project by removing old equipment that's presently on the roof, our chiller and old dehumidifier, and we'd pay for the cost of removing and disposal of that. For future years, we have nothing planned in 27, being that 26 is a large project. And for 28, we have replaced a shared project of reviewing glass in the facility with safety glass at all our windows, and replacing outdated lounge area washrooms. In 2029-30, we would look to replace the outside deck and stairs largely with volunteer labor and adding a disability lift.
Excuse me, your time is up, but if council wants to allow you some more time to finish your presentation?
I have about
Go ahead.
Less than a minute, probably.
Go ahead.
Thanks. And internally, we're looking at doing reconfiguring a bar area and replacing chairs in the out years. Though the town projects, those last two are not critical, but we've put them out there as possible options. We've completed a number of projects the past few years and thank the town for your contributions and the maintenance and upgrades to the facilities, and I'd like to now open it up for any questions or comments you may have regarding our plan.
Thank you. Well, I think on behalf of the town and council, we thank you for the work that you do to maintain this town-owned facility for the benefit of not just curlers, but a lot of other people as well. So thank you for your hard work to try and keep this facility up to snuff.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Okay.
And next is the Royal Canadian Legion branch with Mary Brulette. And Stu?
And Stuart. Good morning. I sent in the report. Hopefully you've all had a chance to look at it. Again, the Legion had a very successful year in the projects that we took on, Canada Day being the largest one, largest single event. Remembrance Day, of course, is what we're all about, and we work well with the town. So our goal with the funding, the contract that we've had with the town, is to keep the staff, the town staff, to a minimum. So we have almost 100 volunteers that work all through the year, and some of them, of course, are doing all the projects all through the year, as it goes with volunteers. But anyways, other than that and what you've read, do you have any questions?
Questions, but I thank you and your team for the excellent events that you hold. We just had a recent run with the levy, so my compliments for the way you look after the facility and welcome almost anyone that I can see coming to your place.
We do welcome them all.
Councillor Harrison.
And just for the benefit of council, the mayor and I sort of staggered our attendance at the levy. I think you were there at the start and I shut up about halfway through. But I did talk to the president briefly about the parking issue, and I'm sure we're going to be having a subsequent conversation about how to distribute those funds equitably, because there was just some concerns that were raised, and so we'll deal with that in more public fashion when we actually deal with that issue.
Yeah, we were kind of tag team that day.
Oh, yeah.
And the other issue that's coming up is, of course, the cenotaph.
Correct.
And you're working with staff, and they'll make sure that happens as well.
Right. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you. Go ahead.
I just had a question about Canada Day. Is there going to be a parade this year?
I knew you'd ask that question. I'm going to just let Stuart. Stuart's going to be the chair for 2026. So let him field that.
Good morning, and thanks for the question, Councillor Skipsey. We are planning at the moment to have a parade. As I'm certain that Council knows, our biggest problem is getting participants into the parade. We intend to do a full court press on seeking applications, and we're looking for support from Council and the town and Chamber of Commerce and others to get the word out for this parade. So we'll keep you advised, but our intent is to try and have a parade this year.
And just to follow up, folks might not be aware, but the reason we didn't have a parade previously is just because there were not enough people to actually join the parade. And that was actually the main reason why, is that basically with 2 parades in our area staggered back to back, some of the folks basically said, well, I did the Parksville one in the morning and I'm done now, thank you. So that was really the issue that the Legion had.
Thank you for your presentation and for the information you provided. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does this go up, please?
And next we have the Arrowsmith Tennis Club, Mr. Stewart or Hukelak. Go ahead.
I'm new here, thank you. Thank you very much for welcoming here today, and I'm going to share a few thoughts from Arrowsmith Tennis. I'm Elizabeth Hukelak. I'm the president of Arrowsmith Tennis. Terry Stewart is our VP. Jackie Smalik is our secretary-treasurer, and we have some members here as well. Should I be advancing this? Sorry. Sorry. Is this right? Oh, there we are, one too many. Okay. Sorry, just to kind of be rhetorical to start with, is not really sure why we're here. We were a little bit surprised at a proposal to convert Court 3 into pickleball courts, and we haven't really seen what the business case is to do that or necessarily understand exactly what's happening with respect to the beneficiaries of that. We obviously think that Court 3 should be left alone as a tennis court. It is the only public court available for the community. Just a little bit about who is Arrowsmith Tennis. We've been around for 50 years, perhaps a little too quiet. We maybe need to make a little more noise so that people remember that we are a stakeholder. We have not been consulted in this particular proposal to date. We serve all of Oceanside. About 30% of our members come from Qualicum Beach, and our programs are open to all ages and abilities and provide skill development, recreation, social play, and health and wellness, as all racket sports do. We've had a membership growth. Again, tennis consistently grows over the years. We were up 21% in our membership last year, reflective of what the national levels of growth are. We're a member of Tennis BC and Tennis Canada. Tennis Canada did a survey in 2024 indicating that 13% of all Canadians play tennis. And so that number translates in Qualicum Beach to about 1,200 tennis players. They're not all members of our club, obviously, but they are playing tennis at least once a year. We are a collaborator and a community contributor. You probably all know that the funds that were used to build those 3 courts for Qualicum Beach were raised by the tennis community 50 years ago. And we have also contributed to the upkeep, keep the garbage off, we sweep them off, we keep the nets repaired and replaced as required. And over the years, we've also raised additional amount of money for more tennis courts. 3 were added in Parksville in 1998. So that's helping growing the capacity for the community as a whole. Our programs for youth is the most significant aspect of what we're doing. Roger's First Set, this is a Tennis Canada program, introduced tennis to 60 kids last year at the Qualicum Beach courts. And we are moving forward in this year with First Set tennis in schools. we'll be introducing another 1,000 kids to tennis as part of the curriculum in the school system. And this is really an important part of how we need to collaborate. That's going to translate into kids wanting to play in leagues and tournaments, and the demand for courts is just going to continue to increase. We are collaborating, as I said, with Tennis Canada, Tennis BC, Qualicum School District, RDN, and hopefully the town of Qualicum Beach as well. So we'd really like to see the courts preserved so that we have the capacity to support these programs for our kids. When we actually translate the number of potential players into the number of courts, we're very deficient in tennis courts. We'll make use of what we have and we'll continue to grow. We're very appreciative of being considered as part of the Qualicum Secondary School program, but we know that's probably about 2 years off before those courts could be available. We're already talking to the secondary schools about introducing league play, so that's important. We need to reiterate that there's an economic benefit from tennis. It's not just the lowest possible cost for investment. There's a lot of potential that will be lost if this court is lost, not the least of which is the tournament which is a sanctioned tournament for points-rated players that will be conducted in June, for which these courts are an essential contribution. We did our own little housekeeping in terms of cost. It's not really our issue to figure out what the pickleball facility should cost, but we did make our inquiries, and the numbers that are being suggested are certainly much higher than what the marketplace is telling us anyway. And the cost to replace those courts is going to be significant. So taking that tennis court away is going to be another additional cost. So our short answer here is leave it alone. We have offered to consult and to work with pickleball on a collaborative basis to see if we can come up with a mutually beneficial solution that works for everyone. We are supportive of pickleball within the community. The Tennis BC, Pickleball BC MOU indicated some guidelines about how that can happen, and I know that you've all received that information. We'd like you to have a close look at that, and we're happy to work with our staff in the town to make that happen. We'd love to have that conversation. So I've quoted a very smart man at the bottom here that said, let's preserve the assets that make our community great. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Any
Thank you.
comments? Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, I really appreciate the presentation. For me, I do think we're better served if we do. One of the things from my brief time, I've not served nearly as long as the mayor has, but from my brief time here, we usually do it once and we do it right, and as opposed to doing stopgap solutions and then eventually doing what we want to do. And I do think here a stopgap just creates friction between two groups who actually are very complementary when you think about it. A lot of folks who are pickleball players probably aged out of tennis to some extent. So I'd rather see a little bit of collaboration, see if we can get a both and, not an either or.
Yeah. Through the chair, if you, I would comment that tennis players will play quite long. Yes, there are many tennis players who also play pickleball, but it isn't necessarily a better sport for the body. So tennis can be adapted to accommodate people who are more mobility challenged and want to play a slower game. So you'll see more of that introduced to our programs coming.
Thank you. Anything else? Anybody else? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate the information. And you don't need to stay unless you're interested in what happens the rest of the meeting, but thank you for your presentation. Councillor Skipsey, correspondence, petition.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I think most of council, I know Councillor Young and Councillor Vander, Valk and yourself and I were all at the presentation from the Seniors Advocate that took place at the Gardens, and realizing that at that point there was a petition that was handed over, the same petition that was handed over to our MLA, and my understanding is that there's over 900 signatures on that petition, and that the MLA will be making copies and giving them to the town of Qualicum Beach as well as the city of Parksville. So I would like to defer this until we have the entire package.
Thank you. A motion to defer the receipt. Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Harrison, discussion, all in favor? Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, and usually I don't favor deferring a petition, but in this case it makes sense because we're going to get essentially a fuller version in the future.
Yeah.
So that's fair.
Thank you. Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Bylaws. Town of Qualicum Beach Miscellaneous Rates Bylaw. Who would like to introduce that? Mr. Hare.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this bylaw is actually changing the fee for tax certificates from $15 to $25. So for a municipality to collect a fee from a provider, anybody, it needs to be included in a bylaw. The current fee for tax certificates, which are requested by notary publics and lawyers, is $15, and that's going up to $25. We're actually going to be changing providers. So currently, the provider that provides certificates to our lawyers do a search through will not be supported by our computer company that supports us. So end result of this would be we would generate a little bit more revenue for the municipality, and the fee to the end user will fall significantly. So the cost of generating a tax certificate by a notary public falls considerably from what's currently paid. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Councillor Harrison.
So in the past, we got a report from staff from administration regarding FOI requests and how we have a bit of a spike. And they're usually just these sort of the routine things when you're looking at a property of making sure there's no hidden surprises with the property. Would this actually be then that service? Or is that a different sort of lane? Just because I remember there was a spike where he said, technically we have a lot of FOIs, but most of them are just sort of this routine transaction as part of a property purchase that we weren't charging for. So just for some clarity for that, I think this is a different stream.
Yeah.
But I'm sort of getting at it as if we are taking on costs as a town. It's reasonable in this case. We're essentially getting our money back. We're doing the exact same fee as Parksville here. That's fine. But I just want to make sure if there's like a business transaction that we're not basically funding business transactions and stuff like that. So sorry for the two questions. It's really just to make sure that is this a separate process or is this the same process?
Mr. Hare.
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Harrison, this would be essentially the same process. So the notary, this is a search that a notary public does to satisfy that a property is free and clear of title or if anything is owing on that property. And essentially, so it's a service we currently basically provide as well.
Thank you. Ms. Svensson.
Through the chair to Councillor Harrison, this isn't related to FOI though. So this is when somebody wants to do like a property tax search for just, it's unrelated to FOIs. Okay. Yeah.
And then just to follow up, and forgive me, this is my ignorance about your process. Maybe this is a silly question. Are there times where people might be using FOIs? And just because I remember that report from a year ago where it seemed like we had a lot of requests for something that's sort of like a routine business thing. Would this be something where maybe someone would be asking for an FOI when this is the process they ought to be using? Or am I just confused on that point?
Through the chair to Councillor Harrison, yes, it's separate. So the FOIs, I think, where the spike where council was brought information last year was just property, people interested in buying a property will put an FOI request in for the full property file. Where this is more would be a current search for an actual purchase transaction. But the FOIs that we're getting for property searches, which we're required to go through an FOI process, is for the actual building permit, the plans, has there been any renovations? That's the spike in FOI that we see for this area.
Thank you, Ms. Svensson. Councillor Harrison. Councillor Vander.
Thank you. I'm just curious in terms of looking at the comparables for Parksville, Port Alberni, and Ladysmith. They also have a $10 fee if a manual search is requested, which we don't have. Is that assuming that we won't be required to do any manual searches, or I'm just wondering what that difference is?
Ms. Svensson.
We have not had to do a manual search, so we wouldn't be required to do manual searches. This is a fee that's paid to us through BC Tax Certificate, who would be doing the search. And
Okay, I'm not quite clear then, so why would Parksville, Port Alberni, and Ladysmith be required to do that? I'm thinking that what that charge is if they have to go back so far that the records aren't on a computer. Is that what that fee is about?
Mr. Hare, do you have an answer for that?
I'm not entirely sure. I can get back to council on what their manual search is. However, generally speaking, I mean, in tax, we refer the notary public to BC Tax Certificate, and the search is done through BC Tax Certificate, and the BC Tax Certificate would submit the $25 fee to us.
Okay. Any further discussion? There's 3 readings. We will take them one at a time. So could I ask for a motion for the first reading? Councillor Harrison, Councillor Skipsey. Further discussion. All in favor? Opposed, if any, carried. And for second reading, Councillor Vander, Valk, Councillor Young. Discussion. All in favor? Carried unanimously. And for third reading, Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Young. All in favor? Opposed, carried unanimously. Thank you. Committee liaison reports. As you noticed, I took my notice of motion off for a number of reasons. It's a very, very complex issue, but I think we're going to get to the bottom of it, and we'll have this settled, I believe, next month. Public Safety, Councillor Harrison.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. One thing, just to start, is there was a particular, my background actually is, I thought I was going to be a literature prof, so I've read a lot of very, very pretentious books, and I've read a lot of books, period. And yesterday there was a speech from our Prime Minister. I strongly encourage people to listen to the whole thing, not just the excerpts you'll see on CBC or Global or whatever news program. Listen to the whole thing. It's a very, very good speech. And the one time I'm going to use, I don't usually use my position here to be a soapbox. This one time I'm just going to do a little soapbox thing. There's a lot of things I've been seeing in the last month which really disturb me that's going on in the world. The only thing I'd urge, I'm not going to have a long spiel, but don't respond in kind. That's not how you change things. The sort of things we're seeing in our neighbors' jurisdiction, responding with equal amounts of aggression isn't how you defeat it. It's by doing something better and being better than that. But there was also, too, there was a bit of internet outage before the meeting, so I couldn't really corroborate some of the very, how should I say it, positive news about Canada economically, because it's basically year-end, we're starting the new year. But there were some reports I was reading about how Canada has diversified its trade more in the last year than any point in the last 5 years. One report says that we had stronger job growth than America did overall in the last calendar year, which I find surprising. So there's a lot of there are a lot of good things happening in Canada right now, and I hope we don't get so caught up in the doom scrolling on the internet of social media that we lose sight of that. Okay, so the notice of motion, I'm not sure the best way to handle this. What this is coming from is there's really one property in town in particular, I'm not going to say the address, but according to the neighbor who's impacted by the LED lights, which are perpendicular to their property, so the lights shine directly in, and it's not an incandescent bulb, we're sort of, that's fine. We're used to having a light on your backyard, which is just a bulb and it goes everywhere, that's fine. But these LED lights are very directional, and it goes right into their window. According to the neighbor who's impacted, he offered to pay for someone to come up and put on a shield that would keep the light on their property. That was rejected. Last I heard, they're still dealing with that issue. So what I was trying to do is find a way that we can have, I do know that the staff comment is like, that's in our strategic plan, we'll deal with that in 2029. But for 4 years, basically neighbors can, if they have a beef with each other, you can put LED lights on the side of your house and have like a headlight blaring at your neighbor's property. And technically, there's nothing in the bylaw to say you can't do that. So I was trying to find the minimal impact way to just make sure neighbors can't be difficult with each other. But at the same time, I do recognize this is actually this is a complicated issue if you want to do it thoroughly. So what I was thinking more is to get a report on this, not to actually move anything today. But I understand too, a full broad thing is maybe for future dates. So I'm not sure how council feels about this, but it is something where right now there's a bit of a gap, and we don't really have, as far as my understanding is concerned, any way to address that behavior within our existing bylaws. And so it's just trying to, like, how do we fix that problem without creating more of a headache? And that was the intent.
And the other issue that I read from the situation is that that light also comes straight out on the beach, which is not good for the wildlife at night to have the bright shining light on their ecosystem down there. So there is an issue here. I know staff is busy, but since you're asking for a report, I'm not sure how much less work that is. But Ms. Verla, how would you think we can manage this situation?
Your Worship, the staff comment stands that Council has provided direction to address the issue of light trespass in fiscal 2029. I understand this is an issue for the one property owner, and I definitely have a lot of empathy for those challenges, but really staff are at capacity right now, and there would be no report light, if you will, that doesn't lead to larger work. Like, you're talking bylaws, you're talking community engagement, you're talking research. It's a very complicated issue, which is why we asked council direction to defer it to 2029, given what is currently on our plate. Thank you.
So we'll have to look at that, whether we can do it sooner. I don't want to push staff either. I know how much is on your plate. Councillor Young.
I appreciate that Councillor Harrison has brought this up, and I also appreciate that he has given examples of other municipalities that do have this bylaw, and I'm just wondering if our town can also do a bylaw from what's been presented from other municipalities. I know that staff is overworked, overstressed, overloaded, but we do now have 2 bylaw officers, and I feel that this is a concern that's present now, and to defer it for another couple years, 3 years, doesn't address the problem that exists right now.
Thank you. Ms. Varela.
Thank you, Your Worship. So it wouldn't be the bylaw enforcement officers who were actually doing the administrative work, developing the bylaw behind the scenes. They may be asked to do research and things like that, but we really have those folks in the field. Again, if council wishes to add more to the plate, then they need to have a discussion about what is coming off. And we're up against some very difficult timelines that can't be adjusted. So we know we're in the middle of negotiations. We know we're working through budget. Those all have defined timelines. We have an election coming up, all defined timelines. Eaglecrest is well underway, and that's what council actually moved all of these kinds of issues out to a later year to accommodate. So if council wishes to come back and provide alternative direction on what is currently on our plate to achieve some of these smaller items, that would be council's direction.
Thank you. Councillor Vander Valk.
Thank you. Well, I think that the question of light trespass was taken up when we were working on the street lights, changing out the street lights, and there were a number of people that were quite concerned about light trespass. I understand that this is a bit different, and I don't know if there's anything other than change in the bylaw that could help alleviate the difficulty. But I think, in all fairness to the people that have been waiting for a study to be done on light trespass, if we decided that we would need to wait until 2029, I think we should stay with that, just to be fair to everyone. And it wouldn't be light trespass only in these circumstances. It would be light trespass on people's houses, on the street lights, and as well, I would think light trespass that's coming from large buildings into neighborhoods. So I think it's a much more, we would need a much more detailed study to be done, and we don't have the time right now to do it.
Excuse me. Yes, I would just echo the comments by Councillor Vander Valk. It's not just one property, and it's not just one source of light or one area of trespass. There's also on public land and on the foreshore, as has been mentioned. And I wish it were as simple as just changing one line in a bylaw, but I don't think it is. And, you know, we did go through our priorities during strategic planning, and it was determined that we would deal with it in 2029. And if we were going to open up everything in that we talked about in strategic planning, maybe there's something else I'd rather bring forward rather than light trespass. So I think we need to stick to our decisions and deal with it when there is staff time and the resources. Thank you.
I know exactly which item you would like to move forward. Councillor Harrison.
Just a couple of points. One, this was technically submitted in the middle of all the Eaglecrest furor, and it's a small thing, so it got sort of lost in the shuffle. But that was technically, I did suggest this before we did strategic planning. But the other solution for me would be, as a stopgap, to have as a nuisance bylaw, just to mention that LED lights from owners of real property should end at the edge of their property. The difference here is that and that'd be the nuisance bylaw, which we have already. It's an existing bylaw for the town, and it's dealing essentially with nuisance behavior. But the issue here, where I would distinguish between our previous conversations, lengthy conversations about all things traffic light, is that there's a real difference between utility, and they have very different legal rights. They have very different approaches to things. Forgive me, we're sort of like, this is what you have, take it or leave it, goodbye. I think that's a very broad conversation. How local government interacts with utilities is actually a complicated legal thing that I'm not qualified to speak to. But for me, it was just, if we were going to have a stopgap, it's not a coincidence that there was a speaker recently who said, "Oh, you could just add one sentence to the thing," as an actual conversation, which I have with a citizen saying, this is something we could do as a stopgap, recognizing it's imperfect. But it would just be either something where we have language referring to the nuisance bylaw, where it doesn't, LED lights create a nuisance from an owner of real property, or specifically that LED lights should be shielded such that they end at the edge of your property. But this is also too, like, I'm not suggesting we just pass that and hopefully it's done in 2 seconds and then we figure out there's a problem later. But when they did say like a one sentence, that would be the approach I would recommend if you wanted to do it as a quick stopgap, is through the nuisance bylaw, and then essentially one sentence specific to LED lights and your property. But I guess, staff would probably want to have a comment on that, and I wouldn't suggest we just move it without staff actually having had their 2 cents.
Again, Your Worship, I'm just going to keep saying we're at capacity, and so it's never as simple as opening a bylaw, adding a line. And when we talk about the projects that are currently on staff's plate, these are huge projects that are affecting every single department. It is affecting planning, infrastructure services, finance, corporate services, myself. So again, I think you folks had to make those really difficult decisions during strategic planning to consider what to prioritize. What I can commit to is bringing back the issue of a nuisance bylaw and the issue of light trespass again to 2027 strategic planning, so that you can consider whether you'd like to advance those next year.
Thank you. Did I miss somebody on the speakers list? Councillor Young.
I'm really sorry. I had really no idea in purchasing the Eaglecrest Golf Course that it would be so taxing on everyone. And I'm wondering, I'm hearing this overload. At what cost would it be to maybe remedy this overload? What would it cost us?
Ms. Vrilla.
Thank you, Your Worship. If you would like to talk about staff duress, I would like to take that into closed meeting. What we did decide publicly is that you were purchasing Eaglecrest Golf Course, and we made very sure that council understood the effort it was going to take by staff, the focus it would take by council to stay the course, and the unknown risks that we have to deal with and problem solve as they come along. So right now you have a lot of balls in the air. Staff are just asking that you stay the course and allow us to do a great job on the big projects that we currently have on our plate. Thank you.
And I can speak to that. I know staff is busy trying to work with a potential operator for the golf course. And it's not as simple as just picking somebody. There's a contract involved. There's all kinds of issues that deal with that. We're trying to sell some of the land to get that going, which we've been talking about for a while. That takes staff time. The whole idea of bringing the golf course back to where it should be. I know Mr. Sales had a tour with a number of contractors that could help us restore some of the fairways that need to be fixed, the greens and the tee boxes. It all sounds very simple. And people saying, well, when are you going to open it? When are you going to start? Who's going to be the operator? When are you going to open a restaurant? I mean, when I had 2 small children, we were living in Prince Rupert at the time, and there was a McDonald's opened in Terrace, which is 140 kilometers away. And we had to drive from Prince Rupert to Terrace, and as soon as we were on the highway, they said, are we there yet? I don't think it changes much when you get older. We're not there yet. It takes time. Staff is doing a super job trying to make sure we're doing all the legalistics, all the planning, trying to get the lands that we said we're going to sell for sale, work with a new contractor, trying to get the course in shape. So we need to respect that. So I will be a gatekeeper saying we cannot take on any more. And I've said that to several people. Why can't we do this? It'll only take a little while. Wouldn't take that much. No. The answer is no. I understand. I see what's going on from my view in my office, what's going on, and they're all very busy. It doesn't not easy to put together an agenda and all the reports that people ask for. So it's not just that we're doing this, we're also doing the regular work to keep this town going, whether it's with infrastructure, all kinds of other aspects of it, safety issues. They're doing the regular work as they are. This is on top of it. So it's not fair to say, well, can we squeeze that in? It's just not going to work. So I will say no, and I will support the motion and the staff recommendation. Anything else? Councillor Young.
Thank you for all that, and I just want to ask if when we do sell some land and we realize some funds, and I know it's already allocated to certain areas in that, but when we do receive some funds, is it a possibility that we can then consider hiring a little more staff help at that point?
I would say not. I think we've hiring more people means not a tax increase. Every person we hire is not a % of our taxes. So I think we have to be very careful what we say we're going to do with the money. We have made commitments, what would happen with the money. There's quite a list of infrastructure needs that exist at Eaglecrest, traffic safety issues, drainage issues. So there's a number of things that we said we would address rather than hiring another person to write a bylaw about light.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just keeping in mind that when we do ask for additional support, we look at that in relation to the effectiveness of the organization as a whole, those long-term visions, those long-term work plans. This is a crunch in 2026 that we all acknowledged was coming with these big projects, that we all held up our hand and said, you know, we're going to do our best to make this work. So I wouldn't support hiring just to solve this crunch that we're in right now. If a hire is asked for, it will be with an eye to the effectiveness of the organization overall and that long-term work planning. So thank you, Your Worship.
Yeah, and just in broad strokes, I know we're not going to be discussing anything specific for staffing, but in broad strokes, if you're looking to do anything that was, say, a contracting out for a specific task, and this is speaking very generally, not just to this motion, if it's something that's done by a lot of our union work, there's in our collective bargaining agreement that you shall pay the same rate. So you're not really saving money there. Arguably, you might be saving overtime. But beyond that, you're not really saving anything because the mobilization, demobilization costs are probably equivalent to your overtime. So potato, potato. And then for stuff that's more senior level, they usually have to sign off on that report anyways, and there's a lot of back and forth. So it seems like you're saving time, but you're still adding more. So, and that would also, again, that would be for a temporary contract. That would not be, I would really not recommend a full-time position for a one-time motion like this. But I think we're also getting a little bit far afield. And maybe we should just, for the sake of everyone here, focus on the issue at hand. If we're not going to advance this now, then so be it. But I would actually just suggest that we do a different motion, because technically I haven't moved it yet. But I just suggest that we defer this to strategic planning in 2027.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. That's your motion, to defer this to strategic planning in 2027. Second to Councillor Skipsey. Councillor Young.
Not totally relevant to this, but when it comes to finances, last council meeting when we were discussing capital projects, or actually the financing plan for 2026, there was $100,000 on the budget for downtown beautification. I'd like council for us to have a discussion on cutting that back.
This is a totally different
I know,
topic,
but
so let's focus on the
funding.
motion.
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded, and trying to keep things going. I'm going to ask the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you.
And there were a few events. I did miss the September 8th Seniors Advocate, but that one issue of respite care for seniors is something, when I initially ran, it was on my rack card back 7 years ago. I attended a meeting with Michelle Stilwell and Carol Dow to talk about that way back when Michelle Stilwell was our MLA, which is a ways back. There is a way to potentially advance that, but there's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of conversations I want to have before I start talking publicly in a forum like this about how that gets addressed for an idea I have, where it might be something complementary. But just want to highlight that I'm very aware of that petition, very aware of the issue. Because I actually, in my younger days, I did live in care for folks with disabilities. And one of the homes I went to the most was for young kids who had severe developmental delays and disabilities. And so the moms would drop off their kids and have the day to themselves. So I'm familiar with something similar to that.
Thank you. And that concludes your report, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Skipsey.
Thank you. There's a motion here from the Heritage Forest Commission, and I believe it supports Objective H of the management plan, which is to encourage public education and appreciation of the lands and amenities. So I would like to move the staff recommendation.
Thank you. And a second by Councillor Vander. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Please proceed.
Yep. The only other thing I'm going to do is give a plug for the Repair Cafe, which is happening this Saturday, January 24th, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the hall at St. Stephen's United Church. And we were totally overwhelmed at the last event with over 130 individuals bringing 159 items. So we're doing the best we can, and we have added some additional volunteers, repairers. So anyways, I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Yeah, you really started something there. It was interesting. Councillor Vander.
Thank you. Well, my report, such as it is has been included in the agenda. I would just note that I'm not quite sure how September 18th, 2025 got in there. I think that might be a typo. So that shouldn't be in there, but there wasn't a lot of liaison meetings that I attended, some over the holiday period. I did also just want to mention I am the liaison for the St. Andrew's Lodge Historical and Cultural Society, and they have been fundraising and are nearing the opening of the lodge. They're hoping for March. And part of their fundraising, it was with 100 Women Who Care, and they were awarded monies at the last meeting. So that was a big boost for their campaign for finishing touches for the lodge. And that's about it for now. I do have a notice of motion, and I wanted to discuss that. This is a proposed resolution for consideration at the 2026 AVICC conference about farmland. And as we know, food security is a big concern, and particularly after the COVID-19 epidemic, and now with, as we'll politely say, trade difficulties with other neighbors, that our need for local solutions for food security has become more evident, and we need to use our farmland better. And we need to protect our farmland for agricultural production. The ALR comprises just 5% of BC's total land base and is the area with the greatest agricultural capacity. It is a finite and valuable resource, and the provincial government has decided to protect this land. There are agricultural and farming uses are permitted in the ALR with another few compatible uses, and non-agricultural uses are restricted. To encourage farming, the provincial government established farm class land, which must meet certain criteria and then receive certain tax benefits. One of these criteria is the income that must be achieved through farming, and that current threshold income level is low and needs to be reviewed and revised. Currently, any property in the ALR, whether it is actively farmed or not, receives tax benefits. I think this also needs to be reviewed and revised so that only land that is actively farmed receives these benefits. And the Agricultural Land Commission is an administrative tribunal independent of the provincial government responsible for making decisions about agricultural lands through the Agricultural Land Commission. And the Agricultural Land Commission needs funding to continue to do this job. So that's the background to my motion, which you can see is on the screen. So I don't know that I need to read the whole motion out.
I think we got it.
Okay.
And it's just, I just wanted to point out to folks that this would be something that would be discussed at the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities. If it passes there, then it may go to the UBCM. So it's not something that council can decide. This has to go through a lengthy process. And anyone from our community who wishes to speak to it can ask for a delegation at a future council meeting to explain their concerns about this. But it'll be before any decision is made at the AVICC or UBCM. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, so part of this I do support. I do support the second bullet point, that we look at the farming income thresholds. I'm not sure when that was last done. My 2 cents in all things ALR is that the land was essentially allocated in the 1970s, I believe.
Yeah.
Either like late 70s or very early 80s.
Early 70s.
So it's a very long time ago. And there's basically 2 broader issues. One is the lower mainland issues, where you have, I think it's the township of Langley, where it actually has 100,000 people. For some reason, they call themselves a township or something like that. But they have, I forget the residential land base that's technically on ALR land, but it's all residential, but it's an ungodly percentage of land which is on ALR land. And particularly with, my grandmother lived in Richmond, and I saw Richmond change over the decades from the 80s till today. And you'd have the issue of people building very large mansions and having a little patch of blueberries, which just technically qualify. And so there's one issue in the large metropolitan centers, right? And there's one issue with how the land is allocated and what is or is not ALR. And then in rural areas, for our area, you have a lot of forested land that's ALR. That's just sort of sitting there, and no one's really doing much with it. And that's why I do have a bit of a problem with the first one, is that This whole idea of growing a lot of food on the island, I don't think we've seriously considered how much land would have to be clear-cut for that to happen. I think the rule of thumb, if you have a vegan diet, is you need 2 acres per person. So if we have about 1 million people on the island, that's 2 million acres of land that has to be farmland. So while I understand that there's a lot of concern with what's happening in the way things are shifting, we had the largest disruption in trade in the last since the Second World War probably, which was the pandemic. And grocery stores were able to accommodate what we needed within a very short span of time when people stopped panic buying. I know we all had the toilet roll issue at the start of the pandemic, but that was just folks hoarding, and sometimes people go clear out the meat section and put it all in their freezer. But when you actually had normal behavior patterns on this part of customers, the global markets were able to adapt, so I just caution that. And then in terms of the third bullet point, the ALC, right now, last I heard, it was, he passed tragically, but Director Gurley used to be one of the folks on the ALC before he passed. In his comments, he was talking at an event in Parksville, was that basically they were rejecting everything. They've rejected a lot. They've accepted a few proposals. When the Minister of Agriculture says, no, 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 you really need to consider this proposal. There was a First Nations drug treatment facility that was proposed in Prince George that was initially rejected by the ALC. And then the minister said, can you please reconsider this? But I think there is reform that's needed for the ALC. I understand the idea to address that, but I'm not really comfortable with the first one, and I'm not sure what the third one, what we're targeting for adequate. I do agree with the second one, though, that the income thresholds should be reviewed and revised to require higher levels. I'm on board with that. That makes sense. But I won't be supporting the motion as a whole just because I have a problem with the first and the third.
Thank you. And like I said, this will all be discussed with a lot of people on Vancouver Island in April, I think, and then again in September in Vancouver. Councillor Skipsey.
Thank you. I think this is an important issue, and I've been curious for a while as to if there are any powers that we as a local government have to incentivize food production on our agricultural lands so we don't have to rely on the province, but I believe the answer is no. So I know in 2024, the City of Pitt Meadows put forward 3 resolutions calling on the government of British Columbia to reform the farm tax, property tax system to better support agricultural viability, and that was at the UBCM, and they are very similar resolutions. All 3 were endorsed, but what, if any, action has actually taken place? I'm thinking perhaps maybe persistence is the key, so I will support this resolution. Thank you.
Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Young.
I'm not in support of this motion. I know that there is agricultural reserve land out there that do pay their taxes because they have not declared farm status. So they are paying taxes, and in this motion, it doesn't bring up the cost of someone farming their land. I mean, it's huge. Otherwise, we'd have a lot of people farming their land and making a great income. It's because it isn't really financially rewarding one to be able to start up and to carry on. We have also a labor shortage. And, you know, you see that on the mainland where a lot of farms are short on workers. So it's difficult for people that have agricultural reserve land to not be tax exempt or have some of these thresholds at a level that is workable. And also, I believe that, especially with the overload of our staff currently, I think this is a discussion that we should have with the MLA and have Stephanie Higginson address this as far as a provincial discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor Van Valk.
Yeah, I just would like to clarify. regarding paying taxes. So people that aren't farming, that don't have farm class, pay taxes, but they do get exemptions on certain taxes, such as their school tax, a hospital regional district, transit authority, BC assessment, and municipal financial authority taxes. So it's not that they don't pay taxes, but they are exempt in certain cases. And I think the fact that it is difficult for younger people to start farming and to make a good living from farming, I think that that's part of the problem with farming and agriculture not being valued as much as it should be. And I think that anything that we can do to support farmers, so that if there are exemptions, they should be for farmers specifically, people that are producing food or related agricultural items. But I think that we really need to protect the land and support the farmers and food production. And yes, maybe it's okay for us to get food imported from other areas, but if we can support our local food growers and buy local, I think that that's a better solution than importing food from wherever.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor Vander, Councillor Young, and then Councillor Harrison. Go ahead.
I did check into this, and with someone that owns some agriculture reserve land, specifically on Berwick, and there was a call in to our town. Daniela replied that because farm status was not declared on this person's agriculture reserve land, he is contributing school tax, hospital, regional district, transit authority, etc., that they are paying for all these taxes and they don't have any exemptions. And also I'd like to further bring up that for those people that have not farmed their agriculture reserve land, they're also expected to maintain their green space and at their own expense. And you know, that's costly too. So I feel like this isn't fair.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Just one point too is that when we look at ALR land, we shouldn't assume that ALR land that is farmed is actively used for food production. The last report the RDN did on this was 2012, I think. It was a report on the ALR land in the regional district, and about 70% was used to grow hay. So the land that actually is being farmed was predominantly being used to feed the horses. Insert joke from Dr. Samuel Johnson about oats in the dictionary, one of my favorite dictionary entries that ever existed. Ask me after if you're curious. But that's just one thing is, for me, I think, what are we actually using? Secondly, I know for our area, the soil is not that great. Now, that's addressable. You can do that, but it does cost money. If we want to encourage a significant amount of agriculture activity on the island to grow food, that's probably going to require some subsidies to be effective. If you look at the Qualicum Beach Soil Report, which again is from the early 80s, I think it's like 81 or 82 when that document was done. But it says basically we sort of can grow blueberries here and everything else isn't really recommended. And that's basically because the glaciers carved off all the land when they receded, carved all the dirt on the land that would have been otherwise there. So, I mean, we're getting pretty far afield here to what this resolution is actually talking about. But I just think that if we're going to suggest a resolution for AVICC, we should first have something like a committee of the whole open up to the public who are actively on farmland in the future. And I saw Ms. Varela arch an eyebrow at that suggestion. But I think this is a very dense thicket of legislation, and I just think that if we don't know exactly how this is going to impact things, I wouldn't suggest moving forward.
Thank you. Councillor, Ms. Varela.
Thank you. I apologize if I arched an eyebrow because I'm supposed to have a poker face, so that one must have slipped. But my only thought there was AVICC resolutions do have a deadline of February 6th, so the opportunity to advance that to the AVICC process, today is your last meeting day to do that, which is why staff set the deadlines for you that we did. So my apologies.
Thank you. And I think the whole premise of this resolution is about the province, not just Qualicum Beach. So ready for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Harrison, Councillor Young opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. That concludes your report, Councillor Vander Valk?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
I do have a report that's on the green sheet for late admission. I also want to go back to on our agenda number 3 on recognition. There is from BC Achievement Foundation is nominate someone that we recognize as being remarkable. And we do have local residents, I think, that have done a great job. So I ask people to consider this, nominate someone that you know for recognition. Then also, I have a motion. And I would like to speak to that motion in regards to supporting the Oceanside, Qualicum Beach Collective in doing this 2026 community event. And I'd like to speak to that.
So we have a staff recommendation, but you have an alternate motion? So what is your alternate motion?
My motion is to, let's vote to support this for our community.
I think you have to be a little more articulate what you mean.
The staff recommendation is that we are not at capacity to embrace this event, and I would like to bring out some comments that we should be supportive of this because this is not requiring any funding from the town. And this is an event that will be a benefit to our town.
I think it may be good, before we start the motion, is to just speak to it. Make your comments, your thoughts, and then you can conclude with a motion.
Okay. I want to start by acknowledging staff's concerns and capacities. Those are real and understandable, especially given the number of priorities Council has asked staff to manage this year. That said, I believe this proposal represents a strong strategic opportunity for Qualicum Beach. This event is exactly what the province designed the 2026 Community Event Support Fund to support: a free, family-friendly, inclusive community celebration tied to the FIFA World Cup, focused on sport, culture, and community pride, with up to $50,000 in provincial funding available. There is no request for town funding. The town's role would be as applicant and partner, while delivery is led by experienced community organizations, particularly the Oceanside Football Club, which has over 600 members and extensive experience running tournaments, registrations, volunteers, and multi-game events. Importantly, Ravensong fields are already the most used fields by Oceanside Football Club. OFC operates there regularly and is very familiar with the site, logistics, scheduling, and field management, which significantly reduces operational risks for this event. This is also not an untested idea. The event lead has direct experience, and I'm referring to the chair of the Qualicum Beach Collective, Matthias Golub. He has served on steering committees for similar community cup events in Ontario and Ottawa and London, Ontario. We successfully combine soccer, cultural celebration, and community integration. The proposal includes meaningful Indigenous engagement, support for local businesses, and real social and economic benefits, all while keeping the event free and accessible. I believe staff capacity concerns can be addressed through clear boundaries on the town role, use of a contracted event coordinator, and reliance on community partners, all of which are already built into the plan. Declining this would mean turning away provincial funding and a strong community-led opportunity that aligns well with our values. I encourage Council to consider supporting this application with appropriate safeguards for staff capacity. And just to summarize the bullet points, Staff capacity concerns related to workload, coordination, and reporting are acknowledged and valid. The proposed event aligns directly with the objectives and eligibility criteria of the province 2026 Community Event Support Fund. The funding opportunity provides up to $50,000 in provincial funding, which would otherwise be unavailable to the town without participation. The proposal does not request any municipal cash contribution. The town's role would be limited to that of an eligible applicant and oversight partner, with operational delivery led by third-party community organizations. The Oceanside Football Club has demonstrated organizational capacity to manage the tournament component, including participant registration and scheduling, volunteer and referee coordination, multi-game and multi-age event delivery. The Oceanside Football Club uses Ravensong Fields as its primary and most utilized facility, including site familiarity and reduced operational risk. Event leadership includes individuals with previous experience on steering committees for comparable community cup events in other jurisdictions. The proposal includes early and meaningful Indigenous engagement consistent with Council's broader reconciliation and inclusive objectives. The event is designed to support community development, social inclusion, and local economic activity while remaining free and accessible. Staff workload impacts may be mitigated through defined role boundaries, use of a contracted event coordinator, and reliance on community partners for delivery and reporting. And Council may consider approving participation subject to conditions that clearly limit staff involvement and protect existing priorities.
Thank you. Councillor Vander, Councillor Skipsey.
Thank you. Okay, so first of all, there's no doubt in my mind that this sounds like a fantastic, fun event for the community. But I also understand staff's workload and the limitations that we are faced with. And I think it was, at one point, I was speaking with the mayor and he mentioned the RDN. And I'm wondering if, being that recreational programming is delivered by the RDN, they have way more staff in their parks department that does this kind of thing, whether it would be more appropriate and much better to take this proposal and have the RDN be the sponsor or the lead applicant. Thank you for the wording.
Ms. Varela.
Thank you, Worship. So the staff comment is on the screen. We certainly understand the potential excitement around such an event, which wouldn't occur all the time. But I think Council also has to consider that we have 4 other events in June that also take staff time. So we have the Family Day, the Show and Shine, the Triathlon, and the Grad Parade. So that's all in June. And I think anyone who's planned an event of this scale understands that a lead up from the end of January till June 13th is when the event is. It's a very short lead up time. And even when we aren't the lead on these community events, such as the Light Up or Moonlight Madness that the Chamber takes care of for us, it still takes significant staff time supporting that event, debriefing afterwards. So again, it's not that the staff aren't supportive of community events. I think we've got a really great track record to show how successful the community is in achieving those. It simply isn't achievable this year. So thank you, Your Worship.
Yeah, so this is something I saw Civic Info, some other communities are doing. I thought this would be great to have in our community, and this is sort of my end of month thing. I was going to start calling Oceanside FC and saying, hey, are you guys doing something about this? So I'm glad to see it's moving forward. I tried doing some extra research just before the meeting about deadlines for this funding stream. I couldn't, the internet was down basically here, so it was not working very well. But I do think this is something that for the $50,000 stream, where you have a smaller scale, There's ways I can see off the top of my head to economize. Like, I think they could probably work with the Cinema Society, who I believe has a projector. Maybe the Cinema Society, for example, they have chairs, they have some other things as well. Like, I'm looking at this budget, and they sort of maxed out the budget. And I understand why you max out a budget when it's a grant, but I still think this is something that we'll be kicking ourselves if we don't do it. I have no indication that something's happening in Parksville, so my concern would be if we say, oh, well, we can go to the RDN and then we miss the deadline altogether. That would be a shame. So I just see Ms. Varela raising her hand on that point. There's a few more things, but that's maybe the first thing for clarification.
Thank you, Your Worship. So February 6th is the deadline grant.
And that's very tight for the RDN to get on a meeting and have their staff comment on their availability. I have a hunch they'll probably say something similar, that we have a lot of stuff on the go. I see the mayor subtly nodding, so I'm assuming that, forgive me, that the RDN would probably say something very similar. One of the reasons for me, I think that this is going to be a very family-friendly event. And now I'm not sure, I was just thinking that we'd only be celebrating the Canada matches, so there'd be less of an impact. If they want to do like a multi-day extravaganza, more power to them. But the one thing I found very interesting is a little while ago, I know that young people in Canada play soccer way more than hockey these days. Largely costs, but also mostly it's costs. Partly safety too. But I remember I was looking at one polling study recently done where for young people under the age of 30, more of them follow soccer than hockey now, which is a bit of a turning point. I was surprised by that. I do think this is something that we do need to do as a community. Now the question is, are we the lead applicant or not? I don't like the fact that the province forces it to be municipalities as the applicant. Like when they specifically said a DMO couldn't do it, I was like, well, Blaine, that would have been lovely. But I just think that this is a once in 4-year opportunity. Canada has actually a relatively strong side, and the matches are happening in Canada as we speak. And I think we'll be kicking ourselves if we don't do this. So I am prepared to have some conversations of what we take off if we add this. But I do think this is something we should add, and I do think, too, we should have something we take off this year as a result and have that frank conversation. But this is just something for me. I just think it's too good of an opportunity to pass up.
Thank you. And from my concern is we've known that this event was going to happen for years. Probably 4 or 5 years that was going to happen. FIFA World Cup, they've laid out the schedule. We know what was going to happen. To come in at the last moment, at the end of December, and say, well, you know, if you want to put up an event, we'll give you. That's not fair. I know staff time involved with Family Day, Beach Day, other events that we work with. And sometimes other organizations get involved, but it still comes down, as Ms. Breller said, with the Moonlight Madness, that staff ends up picking up a lot of the pieces. So, as I said earlier, I will be a gatekeeper trying to not bombard council or have council bombard staff with more requests, especially these last-minute ones. I hate that when they say, well, the deadline is next week or 2 weeks, you got to do it now, make up your mind. There's a huge impact on all of our staff with traffic, with safety, all the details that you have to work with when you were asked to work with First Nations, with dance groups, with music groups, with all kinds of groups that we're supposed to be partnering with. We're still the lead applicant. We're still taking responsibility. So if they'd come up to us and said last year at this time, can you prepare for this event coming up in June of 2016? That might have been reasonable. But to announce something like this, I think on the 22nd of December, and then expect people to have all the ducks in a row, forget everything else that we're doing and put this instead. I like your suggestion that if we're going to do it, we should take something off. I'm not sure what that would be. Ms. Svensson, you are often involved with organizing or helping people direct what they need to do for an event. Can you kind of give us an insight of how much work it is to put on an event like this or anything that we've been doing?
Well, an example would be on page 126 of your agenda. There's A through I, just for an example of events that council will be considering for approval there. And we plan for those, as you alluded to, back in 2025. So we have staff upstairs having to process the applications, getting all the staff requirements in place, where staff time is needed, barricades dropped off, picked up, extra garbage, insurance, all the VHA approvals for all of the food vendors. I mean, the list goes on and on. So while staff agree with what a lot of council said, is we would love to have an event in our community. It's just the timing for something like this on a last minute ask at this time with our plates currently full. I concur with the staff comment that it's not feasible. Perhaps having the RDN or even the City of Parksville be approached to apply, that might be an option, but not having the town be the lead on something like this when we have so many events already in our community.
Yes, and as it mentioned, it's an Oceanside football club that works with this. Oceanside is more than just Qualicum Beach, it's the entire area. So it really should be done by a larger group, Oceanside Services Committee, rather than having it bombarded on us. And as I said, I will not support adding to your workload. And just a little insight of what goes on upstairs and in the rooms, in the committee room. We're working with, as you all know, a contract. We have to do a union contract negotiation. It takes all of staff to be involved in that. We're working with other projects, the budget. Mr. Hare's not here right now because we're pushing that down the schedule that we have to comply with. So I don't think it's fair. I love soccer. I'll be watching many of the games. And I love seeing my grandchildren and many children playing on the soccer fields in our community park. It's a wonderful thing. More and more girls are joining this are doing this sport. So I'm a big fan of it. But I just feel that we've been asked too late to be a proponent or to be a lead applicant. So that's why I cannot support your motion, which you haven't made yet, but I think your motion is to work with this group to have an event. So perhaps now is the time to put some on the table as far as a motion, and then we can discuss that. Go ahead, make your motion.
I will make this motion to support the applying for this funding for the 2026 community event.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Harrison. Discussion. Councillor Vander.
Thank you. I just had a question regarding the staff comments on our green sheet here. The very last line, an alternative course of action available to the collective is to make a special event application to the town and to be solely responsible for the event, including resourcing an alternative funding source. If that was an alternative that the collective would look at, what would be the town's involvement at that point? Would there still be a lot of town involvement, is my question.
If it's on town land, yes. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, so I do want to point out too that I think that when the little intermittent ability to use the internet, it did say that this grant was only posted in December of last year, and this is the first regular council meeting since December. So ergo, it's on our January regular agenda. But I just think that I would rather have a hard decision of cutting one of the other events, because I think this is actually, I think this is just going to be something that would be a lot more important to the community than some of the other events we were discussing. But I see Ms. Farrell once again raising her hand.
You're keeping a good eye on that. Ms. Farrell.
Just clarification that staff received this on January 14th.
Right, I meant December is when the province announced it. So that's when it went public that here's a funding stream. I'm not aware of any alternatives, but that's what I meant, sorry, is that this is when the province put it on their website, and they probably spent a couple of weeks making phone calls and seeing if they can actually do this. So that's also partly why, it's so rushed, is that the province says, surprise, here's some free money, and then everyone's scrambling to sort that out.
I'm also part of the Family Day organization team, and they would be amenable to working with the Qualicum Beach Collective in having this event. So we already are having meetings every month for Family Day, so this would be including that. So I'm thinking that, well, that will take care of extra staffing time. And also that with staff recommending that the collective make a special event application to the town and to be solely responsible for the event, and including resourcing alternative funding source, they already have no funding required from the town. So does that mean that we can be supportive if they put in a special event application?
Thank you. Ms. Varela.
So I think a lot of people don't understand the process for receiving grants. So we've got a 20-page application. I anticipate the reporting for it will be robust. You have, there were 6 categories of co-applicants, if you will, that certainly we would have to coordinate. So I think the actual mechanics of the application itself, even if led by somebody else, we're still, the town would still be submitting that. The onus on us is for reporting. There's just a disconnect between somebody else can do it for us and the reality of what it takes for us to actually do it on the ground. Thank you, Your Worship.
Further discussion. Councillor Young.
This is a request from the Qualicum Beach Collective. It is not the Parksville Collective. Predominantly, the events are held on our fields, and this is an event that is beneficial to many categories, whether it has economic benefits, it's beneficial to social well-being of all the families that have their children in sports, or even the adults that are involved in sports. It has a lot of benefits, and I feel like turning this down is a travesty.
Thank you. Are you ready for the question? Councillor Harrison.
Just one thing to clarify. So the first item when they go through their budget is a $15,000 funding allotment for event management and coordination. And just saying here, purpose, contract event coordinator to manage planning, partners, permits, safety planning, and event delivery. So how much of a workload would that reduce from staff? I'm just curious.
Again, just working out those details is immense. So just preparing for today's discussion, to have this discussion, took me a couple hours that we don't have, given where my focus is supposed to be. I think that's when we talk about asking council to stay focused on the direction you've already given us, understanding that things will continue to come at us during the year. But we had a discussion early when we talked about purchasing Eaglecrest that it was going to be all hands on deck, and we needed to make some hard choices. And again, it's things like this that you really want to support that make those decision-making processes hard for you. But just figuring out the pieces takes a lot of time that we don't have right now. Thank you.
I still have a question.
Well, I just wanted to say that I am the town liaison to the Qualicum Beach Collective, and I know that they had been thinking about this, but I was not approached about any of this. I think it is true that it would be a very good event, and that it would be beneficial to the community. But I also think that it's well out of our scope at this time, and that perhaps they could think about an event that would be equally as community building as this in future years, and give us a little more time and understanding of what involvement the town would have. So I think it's unfortunate the way that it has come about in terms of the late funds from the province and then us just getting the request on the 14th of January. I would like to be able to support it, but I can't with all the discussion that's gone on about what else the town needs to be doing and how much time it would take. It's not a money issue so much, it's a time issue for staff, so it's the time and effort for staff.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
Councillor Harrison said, what can we substitute to take on this project and possibly delaying or something else? So what can we substitute and to defer and have this event to be taking place?
I would say that's almost a rhetorical question, but if you want to answer it, go ahead, Ms. Rilla.
Sure. I think the big pieces that staff have on their plates right now, the challenge, why we're in a pinch for 2026, is we have defined deadlines. So I can't adjust your budget deadline. I have to move that ahead. That's legislated when that has to be approved. We know we're on a tight timeline for that. We know we can't move collective bargaining. We're in that process, so I can't move that. That's unworkable. So we've got budget, we've got bargaining. We have the municipal election we're preparing for. That started a couple months ago, actually. I can't move that date. Eaglecrest, that purchase has been made. You have development that has to occur. You have public engagement that has to occur. You have servicing that has to occur. I can't move that date. So the Commons, we're responding to daily with challenges. So again, I can't move any of those big pieces. Your Director of Corporate Services already referred to the long list of public events that you're holding this year that staff will be involved in that have been in the works for the last year. So, Your Worship, I would have to come back to you with anything other than that, because those are really the large pieces. We also have a couple key recruitments that we're looking for. We know our Department of Finance is running without second in command, if you will. So I can't deal with any of those things. I just have to keep asking Council to stay to your commitment of keeping us focused on those big pieces that I can't adjust the deadlines on. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Well, I'll be the jerk who suggests an event to get postponed because it's a terrible position for staff to be in to recommend an event to be postponed, because that's really unfair to them. But for me, I think it would really come down to one of two things, which are principally the town does it. And that's Family Day or Beach Day. And of those two, I'd suggest Beach Day. I think it has fewer people attending than Family Day. And it's not that I have any animus against it. I just think, how many people will show up for this event? How many people show up for Family Day? How many people show up for Beach Day? Beach Day is probably the lowest of the three. And that's why I'd suggest that we do a one-time thing. We let everyone know we're just doing a postponement this year. Next year, it'll be back again stronger than ever. But here's why we're doing it, and we're having a multi-day event. But to your point, yes, something has to come off. You can't just add extra endlessly. But I'd be the jerk to suggest that when we're looking at moving this, this is the thing that we don't do instead.
Thank you. And I did consider, do we take off Family Day? But that's been kind of almost a historical event as well, and say we'll take off Family Day. I feel for Councillor Young, who is passionate about this, and Councillor Harrison, who wants to make this work. I think we all would like to see this happen. And if we had been given more time, these last-minute things, getting a request on a week ago, that's a week ago. Just drop everything and do this instead. I don't think that's reasonable. So I'm going to call the question. There's a motion. Can you read out the motion, Ms. Swenson?
Moved by Councillor Young and seconded by Councillor Harrison that Council support the Qualicum Beach Collective in their request to the town to be a co-applicant for the 2026 Community Event Support Fund.
Okay, and I give the last word to Councillor Young.
I'd like to defer this motion until we have the Committee of the Whole meeting next week, and maybe we can make that decision after that. I'd like to have some more feedback from our community, which we represent.
Thank you. Ms. Varela.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just for clarity's sake, next week's Committee of the Whole is dedicated solely for finance, and unless Council provides direction to, we really stay focused because those are such big pieces for the public to absorb. So we have been very strict over the last few years about just keeping finance committees of the whole to those items.
Yeah, and I don't know how fair it is for the community to say, well, you tell us whether you think we should do it, after what we've been telling people how busy our staff is. I don't think it's fair to ask members of the community, whether in the gallery today or next week, to give an opinion and tell us what we should be doing. I think we're here to make the decision. We've got a motion on the floor. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Vander, Mayor Westbroek opposed. Motion fails. That concludes your report, Mr. Councillor Young. Thank you. CEO Officer, Commission Review. Who would like to speak to that?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'll just introduce Trudy Coates, who's been working closely with the Heritage Forest Commission, the Brown, and representatives from the Brown Property Preservation Society and the Land Conservancy as we move through the implementation pieces, if you will, of the committee and commission review. So with that, Your Worship.
Ms. Coates.
Thank you. So I think you can see from the report, it's a bit of a complex issue. And I almost think I should have given a little flow chart. But basically what we're looking at is all of these bylaws are connected, but actually our main legal obligation is under the charter, or the covenant, the conservation covenant that the town registered on the property after purchasing the property through the fundraising by the Brown Property Preservation Society. So it has been a very successful program for many years. However, it's at a point where it needs to evolve a bit, and where we're more cognizant, I think, in the last year, year and a half, of the commitments under the covenant, the communication that needs to happen between town management and the grantees. So the covenant has, the grantor is the town because we own the property, and the grantees are the Land Conservancy of BC and the Brown Property Preservation Society. That covenant was created in partnership with town staff coming back through to council for approval, legal advice, and the Heritage Forest Commission providing input. Before the Heritage Forest Commission was created by council by adopting a bylaw in 2000, there was actually a group that would get together, and it was, I think it was called the Brown Property Management Group. So it was a little unofficial. But then that evolved, and the bylaw was produced to create the Heritage Forest Commission. Actually, the first bylaw didn't even name it. It just had name to be provided. It was the name to be provided bylaw, and eventually became the Heritage Forest Commission bylaw. And their major focus in those early days were giving input on what the covenant should include. There had been one covenant before that covenant. When the first parcel was purchased, the purchase was done through 4 parcels. But the first one didn't give the detail, didn't have the grantors and the grantees, and so it did evolve with input of all the partners. And then it evolved. The Heritage Forest Commission did evolve a bit. It's had a couple of amendments, but now we're at another stage. And the report it goes through some of those nuances of the fact that we call it a commission, but the group, the representatives there, the Brown Property Preservation Society and the members at large all agree that it's an advisory group. It's an advisory to council, and that's the way it's operated for many years. So the report provides an updated bylaw for the Heritage Forest Commission, still naming it the commission, but acknowledging that it operates like a committee. It's advisory to council. The Brown Property Preservation Society is represented on the commission, and they have hundreds of volunteers and are very active in the forest. And so we've talked about the relationship and how that works, and I think council's already has some things in the works to ensure that we adequately protect the volunteers that are going into the forest. So we're working with our insurer and working on an agreement, and that will be coming forward at a later date. So this report really focuses on a new Heritage Forest Commission bylaw, and a small amendment to the Heritage Forest Reserve Fund establishment bylaw, and the council procedure bylaw. And it also presents for council's authorization for staff to proceed to seek concurrence with the grantees, which I mentioned are the Land Conservancy of BC and the Brown Property Preservation Society, for the Heritage Forest Management Plan. So the covenant, within the covenant, it identifies that there not only has to be a covenant, but that the town can, if it wishes, well, that you had to produce one Heritage Forest Management Plan, and then if you wish, you can amend it. So what we've presented here in this report is the Heritage Forest Commission bylaw, a new one, that changes some things, improves the language in some areas, and on page 69 and 70 of the report, it lists what some of the changes are. And I think I missed one, though, to highlight, where it talks about clauses 7 to 18 being updated. There was also clause 14. It increased the membership term from 2 years to 3 years. So when you're looking through this report, that's one thing. If you were comparing the current bylaw that's within this report and the proposed bylaw, that's one thing I didn't highlight in the report. And then the Heritage Forest Reserve Fund establishment bylaw, that was something that the commission had actually recommended to council in 2015, anticipating that there would be a donation received or a bequest through a will, and to have a separate fund that this monies would be put into, and the interest and the monies deposited would be only used for very specific purposes. The maintenance improvements in the heritage forest. And another condition in there was that there would be input requested from the Brown Property Preservation Society at the time that, before any monies were expended. Oh, sorry, not the Brown Property Preservation Society, getting confused here. It's the Heritage Forest Commission. So before any monies can be expended from the fund, there needs to be input from the Heritage Forest Commission. Now, this report identifies an amendment to that bylaw to change that, to seek the input from the grantees, direct, Brown Property Preservation Society and the Land Conservancy. What we've seen most commonly is that when there's a project being proposed in the forest, that it's at a recommendation from the Heritage Forest Commission. So they're already very aware of any project that's going on and make a recommendation to council on it. So it seemed redundant to have us go back to them for seeking input on the use of those funds. When under the covenant, we have a legal duty to consult with the grantees, who are the Brown Property Preservation Society and the Land Conservancy. Can you see where I'm saying I should have drawn a chart? Like, it's a very circular thing. Anyway, so that was the minor amendment to that bylaw that's in this package, and certainly has positive comments from the Brown Property Preservation Society on that. And then the Council Procedure Bylaw amendment was something Council may recall that when you considered the report in November, there was mention there that, and that report really focused on anomalies in the operation of several of the committees and what actions we took to correct those anomalies. One of the anomalies was that in some cases, members were phoning in or calling in electronically to participate in a meeting. And that was probably a hangover from the COVID rules. So during COVID, the province brought out a rule that council committees could participate electronically without it being in a council procedure bylaw. So that order of the province, that ended several years ago. So that's no longer permitted for committee participation electronically unless it's within the council procedure bylaw. At that time, staff had said, the only way it could occur was if there was an amendment to the council procedure bylaw. But we didn't make it a recommendation. We knew at that time council was not considering the council procedure bylaw and opening it up until 2027. However, there was discussion at that meeting, and you can see in this agenda, there was a motion for staff to bring forward a draft that would then permit it. So that's the council procedure bylaw amendment. So we've talked about the 3 bylaws, and then the third item is the Heritage Forest Management Plan. So I mentioned that one of the covenant requirements was to have a Heritage Forest Management Plan of how it would operate, things that would need to occur. And in fact, the covenant lists certain things that could be considered. Public use and access, trails, signage, fencing, trail maintenance, planting of native vegetation, the beach creek and wetland protection, procedures regarding danger trees. There's a whole list, and it was not an exclusive list. There could be other things in the Heritage Forest Management Plan. So going back over the years since it was implemented, there's been probably, I'm trying to think now, I've got a list here on page, I'm not going to get to it. There's a list of how many times it's been amended, and it was amended by council motion. The covenant also states very clearly that we have to get input, consent from the grantees, the Heritage Forest, the Brown Property Preservation Society, and from the Land Conservancy to amendments to the Heritage Forest Management Plan. It also says that anything in the Heritage Forest Management Plan must be consistent with the covenant. So at this point, we wanted to produce a consolidated Heritage Forest Management Plan. We worked with a representative from the Brown Property Preservation Society and presenting that in this report. The covenant also says that for the Heritage Forest Management Plan, council, we can't just present it to council and you approve it. That's not, it's a much longer process in the covenant. It says we present it to council. You authorize us to take that to the grantees, the Brown Property Preservation Society, and the Land Conservancy of BC, and to the public, like in a public meeting like this, and get that feedback, and then seek their agreement. And there's a long process in the covenant about if there isn't agreement. However, my good news for today is that the Brown Property Preservation Society has, looked at it, and they are very happy with it. We've also been in communication with the representative that we work with on the Land Conservancy, and we've also had discussion. They're most impacted by the Heritage Forest Commission bylaw amendment. So the report lists the changes in the bylaw for the Heritage Forest Commission. One of the big changes is to have the TLC represented. And yeah, I think I've touched on the 4 major things, and if you have some more questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Coates. Questions? Councillor Harrison, Councillor Skipsey.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So I just have a couple of questions going through the Heritage Forest Management Plan. And one of them is we had a bit of a discussion earlier about danger trees. And I'm just looking at the actual listing here on J on page 94, where Roman numeral 3 is that if the town plans any work to conduct any tree work, the town will first contact the Brown Preservation Society representative to arrange a site visit. And I'm just wondering, if we have a tree, middle of a windstorm, we know it's about to fall, potentially on someone's property, does that mean we have to get that representative to do the site visit first before we take emergency action in that event? Because that's just the way it reads,
Yeah.
and I just want to make sure about that.
Okay, I'll get confirmation, but I believe if it's a
No.
danger tree, we're not going to wait for anybody.
No, there's actually a mention in there of,
Yeah, the Roman numeral 1. It's just that Roman
Yeah,
numeral 3 right
yeah.
after counteracts Roman numeral 1. So which one are we following? That's just sort of the point. With the way
there's a
it's worded.
hierarchy. It's
Yeah.
1 in emergency, all the rest of it otherwise.
Okay. Well, as long as that's clear to everyone, I just wanted to make sure, because when you have 2 clauses in the same document with saying 2 different things, you just want to make sure where things are at.
Thank you. You're very perceptive.
And then just a couple other things too on page 95. Just because we have more and more droughts in this area, right now you have things like number 5, ensure woody debris are left on the ground for decomposition. We also have language in here on an earlier page about how the pass will be wood chips in all circumstances. I do realize we have a council resolution recently to that effect. I'm just wondering though that if we have even worse drought conditions in, say, 4 or 5 years' time, and we get a report from the fire chief saying you cannot use wood chips for the pathways anymore, it is so dry all summer long that it's a massive fire risk. Are we tying our hands a bit with having that in the document?
I would think when we get a report like that, we'd have to review our position and reconsider that.
So I just wanted to make sure that we had that lens, because I know 95 at the very top says objective to mitigate imminent fire hazard, but we are seeing really shifting climate in our area. It's been much drier the last 5 years, and so I just want to make sure that we don't basically inherit language from some time ago where it's a lot wetter in the summer, and then actually create a bit of an issue.
I agree. We have to be open to changes if things happen like that. Councillor Skipsey.
Thank you. I went through and compared the management plan, the proposed one, to the last version that I have, where the Brown Property Preservation Society president, the fire chief, and staff and myself all sat down and went through each section, all the wording, and there are a number of sections that are a little different. So I'm wondering, rather than go through each of them here and now, I think if we adopt all of these recommendations, there's still space for me to pass them along or have that conversation with staff before the plan goes to the guarantees. So I would like to do that, if that's acceptable.
Yes, I don't think we're in a hurry, and we can do it anything before we do adoption. So there is the time for you to work with Ms. Coates and Fire Chief, whoever else needs to be involved. Ms. Coates.
I probably didn't touch on it clearly enough of what the process was in producing this second consolidation. So yes, there was a consolidation that the Brown Property Preservation Society president had prepared, and it had gone to the Heritage Forest Commission, and it was the subject of a staff meeting with yourself, and I believe the TLC rep was also there, if I'm correct. But what I wanted to get to, though, was that the draft was the draft as presented at that meeting. Staff met, made some amendments, emailed it to the BPPS president, and he emailed back and said, thanks, it seems fine. And then, so we had met, and then we had a second meeting with Chris Danger, and myself, and Tom. And we had gone through, I guess for me, some of it I had no knowledge of, particularly the example of the danger tree. The former Heritage Forest Management Plan had some different wording. So I said, so guys, tell me, is this what we do when there's a danger tree? And they said, no, that's not what we do. We do this, this, and this. And so that was very clear that what happens in one circumstance, if it's an imminent, what happens in if there's just something that needs to be corrected. At the call to the Brown Property Preservation Society president, staff meeting on site. So that was all written up. And so that wording was substantially changed, more to the point of referencing the covenant and section and on trees, and also referencing the appendix attached to the management plan. So that discussion happened. Subsequent to that, staff had a meeting with Fire Chief. He noted a couple of other changes. We sent those on to the Brown Property Preservation Society, and that's when I got the response that said, thanks, Trudy, seems fine. And then a follow-up email from him on Friday saying, thanks, very good job. It's taken almost 20 years to get all of this well organized. I feel like we really are now. The remaining link to ensure staff are more familiar with the covenant and the plan, yay. And I didn't mention that because it was mentioned in the November report, but there was a lot of work done in 2025 on the operation of the Heritage Forest Commission, providing a resource manual that was also to be used by staff so that they were more knowledgeable on the covenant and the Heritage Forest Management Plan. And they clearly see this new Heritage Forest Management Plan as a step towards that. To the comment of, will we be changing anything else? It's already gone to the Brown Property Preservation Society, but not officially from council. But we've met with the Brown Property Preservation Society president at least 3 times and had emails too. So I mean, council could direct that, but then it'll require us to let them know again, which they would not be expecting, before it's officially sent to the 2 grantees, the TLC and the Brown Property Preservation Society. And then once we send it to them, they have 25 days to respond. So even if they wanted to have second thoughts on it and submit something back, they could do that. But they've seen it several times, so I don't think it's something that has to happen.
Thank you. Ms. Varela.
Your Worship, so really, at this stage, I consider that Heritage Forest Management Plan to be a live document. So, once it's referred to the grantees, they still have the opportunity to provide comment, even though BPPS has been closely involved in this, even as recently as last week. Certainly the opportunity to inform the council liaison and walk through any additional points. We can do that offline before this is referred out. I think one of the big processes that I'm really excited about is we're actually getting a handle on what the Heritage Forest Management Plan is and who is the keeper of it. How is it updated? What is the lens to how it is connected to the grantees as well as the town? So we're really tightening up on a lot of those processes. So we would welcome the council liaison's input as we're finalizing this draft. And some of it may just be questions the liaison may have as, well, how did we move from this to this? So happy to have that conversation offline, Your Worship.
Councillor Skipsey.
Thank you. Yeah, some of them might be questions and some of them might be just clarification, whatnot. There was another comment I had about if we're updating the information, is it also worth noting that the Heritage Forest is now a protected area in the Government of Canada's database, because that was a big deal that happened, I think, for many people, and that's since the last update, and that was through Mabry did the research, and an application was submitted, so we're now included in the federal government's 30 by 30 numbers. So I think that that's of fair significance and probably should be included in this update if we're updating information. The last question I had, I guess, is on page 95 under methods, it talks about supervising contractors and whatnot on the property. And I'm wondering if supervise means is the same as on-site, because I know in the past there had been issues and some mistakes made, and so we're eliminating the requirement for somebody from the Brown Property Preservation Society to be there also to supervise. So I just want to make sure that supervise means that a staff person will be on site when any work is taking place. Thank you.
Ms. Miller?
Thank you. So I know we had a recent example where we had both Brown Property Preservation Society and staff on site. So I think the trend is to err on the side of caution, and certainly because the relationship is so strong with the president of the Brown Property Preservation Society, it's very easy, even in the case of an emergency tree, to get a really short turnaround if he's anywhere in town. So if there's some strengthening or clarification of language that you'd like to see in this section, we can certainly turn our eye to that offline just to make sure it's achieving what you're hoping.
Okay. Councillor Harrison.
Just through the chair to staff, is there an immediate timeline on this being adopted that we have to advance in the next, say, month or so? Because if not, then what I suggest is maybe let's just do 2 readings instead of 3. And if there's any wordsmithing we want to do, we can take that offline. And then at a future meeting, we'll have whatever wordsmithing or whatever answers to questions. Then we can do 3rd and adoption potentially at the next meeting. Just because I'm comfortable with doing 1 and 2, but there's a couple little things that I don't want to drag down on that. And that's why I was just thinking maybe get 2 readings done. We all agree with getting this done, but maybe taking some of these detailed conversations later as opposed to 3rd reading, redo 3rd reading with a new document.
Well, while you're on the mic, why don't you move 1st and 2nd reading on the first item?
Gladly.
Thank you.
Yep.
And the seconder, Councillor Young. Ms. Varela.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just clarification that the bylaws and the readings, so 1 is for the Heritage Forest Commission bylaw, 1 is for the Heritage Forest Reserve Fund, 1 is for the procedure bylaw.
We're only doing number 1. We're only doing the first reading on the Heritage Forest Commission bylaw.
Yes, but Your Worship, we're not asking for readings on the Heritage Forest Management Plan. That's just a referral process. Sorry, I just wanted to differentiate that there are no readings on the Heritage Forest Management Plan. Again, we're looking for referrals so we can get that out to our grantees for their input within that 25 days, and then that will come out. So no readings for that one. Sorry, that was a long
Actually, no, that's fair. Then we should do 3 then. Yeah, Ms. Farrell's correct.
All right, so it's been moved first and second reading, and we have a seconder? Yeah. Pardon?
We can do 3 if you'd like, Your Worship, if staff is comfortable with that. Just because Ms. Farrell is quite correct, we're not discussing the management plan and the bylaw.
That's right.
She's correct, so there's no point discussing that and holding things up.
All right, I accept your motion that we do first 3 readings as per staff recommendation on the first issue, and that was moved and seconded. Discussion, all in favor? Opposed, if any? And number 2, about the Heritage Forest Reserve Fund, Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Vander, also for 3 readings. Further discussion, all in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. And then on electronic participation, also for 3 readings, Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Young. Discussion, Councillor Harrison.
Oh, and just for the benefit of the public too, this does not, the staff does have a note, but it does apply to certain things that are in camera are not eligible right now to be done online. But just wanted to clarify that because I think it is an important point, especially with an election coming up. People might want to know if can I go to Arizona for 3 months or something and do in-camera work if you run for office. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. So that's also been moved and seconded for 3 readings. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. And then that council seek concurrence from the Heritage Forest Commission. And you see it on the screen. Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Harrison. Discussion. Councillor Harrison.
So this is the one where, like I do support more or less advancing with this, but this is the one where I think there's going to be a couple questions, a couple bit of wordsmithing. So maybe, like I'm still comfortable saying we're going to be doing this. But is there something where maybe if we have any questions, there's a couple days where you can submit that to staff prior to that, going to the society, and then having the document just sent to all the council?
If you have some wordsmithing, just present it to Ms. Coates, and if it requires an amendment, then we can do that. Otherwise, it's just minor amendments, friendly amendments. Yeah. Ms. Varela.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just a reminder that you might see additional amendments suggested by the TLC and the Brown Property Preservation Society. So it is a bit of an iterative process, if you will.
I understand. Thank you. So that was also moved and seconded for 3 readings. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. And at this point, we're going to ask for a request for a recess. How much do we think we need? Half an hour? Have lunch? How much? 30 minutes? Okay. Okay. Councillor Skipsey moved. Councillor Vander seconded. We have a recess for 30 minutes. Thank you. I think our recess is up. Let's see, where were we? Fireworks. That's why the fire chief is here. Ms. Varela.
Thank you, Your Worship. So
I'll call the meeting back to order.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I thought you did, sorry. So this is one of those items that has been in streams. So for the last 2 years, Council has been struggling with the idea of what to do about fireworks in the town of Qualicum Beach. And we know we have community events coming up. And so what I have before you is a slightly new tool, if you will, for Qualicum Beach, and it's a request for direction. So before we go and do a bunch of work, we put a light staff report before you, which really just says, is this something you want to proceed with, restricting fireworks in the town of Qualicum Beach, either at the community level, the private property level, or both? If council wished to proceed with providing direction to staff on that issue, we have an interim stopgap where you could direct the fire chief not to issue special use firework permits as per the bylaw. And then staff could be directed to develop a bylaw to ban the use of fireworks in the town of Qualicum Beach. But we could bring that back later once we're through this current crunch period, maybe in Q4. But it does put the burden of decision making on council rather than the fire chief having to decide by application. So with that, Your Worship, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison, being public safety, what do you think?
Well, for me, this is something which is a bit of a make work, because when I read the bylaw, it says that you can only discharge them on October 31st. And the 24th to the 31st is the period in which you can purchase the fireworks in town. I'm not aware of anywhere you can purchase fireworks in town. I think if we have an existing bylaw that says you can only discharge it on Halloween, and that's for the Halloween event we used to have, and that's no longer available because we're too close to a health facility by about 15, 20 meters. It's the Eagle Park facility. We technically are too close to that to allow for the bonfires. We're not doing the fireworks in the park either. I think the status quo, I'm not hearing a lot of fireworks in town boundaries, and I think this is basically what the existing bylaw allows. So I just think this is fine, and the special event technically isn't on town property. So we have no legislative authority for the Festival of Lights fireworks event. So for me, I think the status quo is fine. It's not.
So that's your motion?
I would move alternative 1.
Okay, is it seconded? I'll second it. Just further discussion? Councillor for Skipsey?
Well, I think it's worth looking into. So I would support that staff be directed to develop a bylaw. I think because of the negative impact fireworks have on some people and pets and wildlife and the environment, that I think it's time to really crack down on it. And I know that there was last year, I think at the Regional District of Nanaimo, there's the Fire Service Advisory group, and I know, I believe that the fire chiefs have suggested that we look at this, and there was a report done by the RDN entitled Options for Regulation of Fireworks in the Regional District of Nanaimo. That was done on May 7th, 2025. So I would like to see what could be done, and I just think that it's time to move past. And I do hear fireworks in my neighborhood from time to time around the 4th of July, which is probably one of the worst times to be lighting off fireworks. And I just, my preference would be to go with the original staff recommendation. Thank you.
Further discussion? Councillor Vander Valk?
Yeah, I would like to see this looked into further as well. I do hear fireworks at the strangest times, and I can't quite figure out why I'm hearing them. Maybe it was somebody's birthday, or I don't know. So I would like to see both of them restricted. So, and as well, because of, I think it does have a very negative effect on the community as a whole in many different ways, the lighting fireworks.
Okay, because they sell fireworks in Coombs and other places, people just come into town, unaware whatever bylaw we have, and just fire them off down by the beach. I've seen them down there, or wherever else they feel they can shoot them off. So I agree with maintaining the status quo, and in particular also, because we talked earlier about not creating more work and having another bylaw. I think the status quo is fine. What I would like to see is communicate with the regional district and say, no sales in the regional district. That would be more effective, because people can buy it all they want and come over here and fire them off. And it's very hard to catch them once they do their thing, fire it off, and then leave. So I think it just creates a lot of, and I agree with Councillor Harrison, perhaps unnecessary work. Thank you.
So yeah, sorry, that was the point I was going to make is that we just finished hearing on multiple things. We don't have time. If members of council are uncomfortable, we could move this to strategic planning next year, sort of like we did with the LED light trespass. And I think that'd sort of be treating things similarly, because it'd probably be about the same amount of work. And just for the point on July 4th, technically that's not allowed already by default. Like, it is restricted technically. If we were going to address that, it would probably be more about an information campaign, like posting on social media, please be aware, fireworks are not allowed to be discharged in the town unless it's, you know, basically, or during the summer. And you don't have to mention the October 31st, because the last thing we want is everyone stocking up for October 31st. I think that this is more something where if we want to address these discharges, which are already prohibited by the bylaw at all these different times of the year, maybe it's just more of an information piece that we should be doing. But I do think this is, if we want to discuss this, we could just defer this to strategic planning too, and that might be a compromise.
Yes. I think if we'll vote on the motion, which is maintain the status quo. Councillor Skipsey.
I have a question to the fire chief just about how many special use firework permits would we normally issue?
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Skipsey. So in 2025, I had 2 requests. One I declined because of its location and the wildfire risk, and they didn't have a few other requirements in place. And the only other one that we approved in principle because of the gathering would have been the one on the Family Day weekend. So two of them, and we usually get about 2 a year.
So just to, that one, they fired them off on a barge offshore, so that's really not in our jurisdiction. The only thing we had to deal with was traffic and so on, and safety issues. But as far as the fireworks itself, if they have a barge and they tow it off the shoreline, then there's not much we can do about it, is there?
Correct. We just approved the principle of the people be gathering, or the groups would be gathering on town line, so we approved that under the principle, but not approved the fireworks lighting off per se.
Thank you. Further discussion. Councillor Young.
Can we, possibly give notice to surrounding municipalities or in press release to say that we do not welcome fireworks? I also know that I believe on First Nation lands, there's also fireworks being sold there, and I don't know. I think the seller should be able to let their customers know that don't take it to Qualicum Beach, and if they can somehow get some sort of notification, but it's hard to do, I guess, because it's a huge public outreach, but.
Further discussion? The motion is, Ms. Spencer, can you read the motion?
Councillor Harrison moved and Mayor Westbrook seconded that council direct staff to maintain the status quo as per bylaw number 611, a bylaw to regulate the storage, sale, and discharge of fireworks and firecrackers, 2007.
Thank you. Councillor Skipsey.
I just want to say that I won't be voting in favor of that. I would rather see it referred to strategic planning 2027. Thank you.
And I think if this motion passes, that's for the time being, and then we can make a secondary motion that this will be referred to strategic planning. Councillor Harrison.
I'm happy to compromise because it maintains the status quo until strategic planning anyways, and a motion to defer always takes precedence. So if we want to defer, we might as well just defer it now, because it'll have the same effect as referring it to strategic planning in a year with two motions.
I love the way you guys trying to work it out. That's wonderful. For a chair, that's a dream. So motion to defer, and seconded by Councillor Harrison, and discussion. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Corporate Services, Ms. Svensson.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. On page 108 of the agenda package before council is the cemetery bylaw clarification on non-resident exception. As you recall, at the last meeting, we were going for adoption, and council had asked for clarification on a non-resident being interred in the cemetery. And so there's clarification in the bylaws under section 4.3 to discuss the non-resident exception. Whereby a non-resident whose spouse, child, or parent is interred in the cemetery may be granted a license to use the grave space. The question that we had from the member of the public was to the resident living in Qualicum Beach purchase a grave space and inter a family member that is a non-resident, and the bylaw does not permit that. And we explain in there why that is a recommendation of staff is just simply for the amount of space at the cemetery. It's intended for Qualicum Beach residents or District 69 residents. And so we have that information there for council.
Thank you. I got a lot of information or requests from people about this. I totally support the bylaw and the wording of it, so I move for adoption. Councillor Harrison seconding. Discussion. Councillor Skipsey.
This is just the one that I had flagged that maybe we could review it again in 3+ years just to make sure that we're still in line with our neighboring communities, because if we are raising it every year, maybe, just for comparison's sake. So I just think it would be nice to bring it back in 3 to 5 years, or just to look at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Harrison.
And forgive me if I'm a little bit out of the loop. Sorry, it's been a very busy last little while with a lot going on, but my understanding of the conversation initially with the one special request we had was that it was for cremated remains, not for an actual gravesite. Isn't for an actual gravesite? Because I sort of view the two a little bit differently. Forgive me, like my gut for grave sites is I understand where staff's coming from. We have finite space, and in order to expand the cemetery, which we already technically approved a slight expansion recently, you have to cut down a lot of trees, which isn't very attractive. But for like columbarium niches and other things, I'd be a lot more open to that. So just, can staff just clarify what that request was? Sorry, my apologies.
Sure. Ms. Swenson.
Thank you, through the chair, to Councillor Harrison. The bylaw treats them the same. So it's still taking up space, whether they're cremated. We still have to purchase columbarium niches, and cremated remains can also go in a full burial plot. So again, it's someone, a Qualicum Beach, the bylaws prohibiting is someone that resides in Qualicum Beach who's living from buying a space wherever and putting a non-resident in it. So it's filling up the cemetery quicker with non-residents.
All right, so further discussion. Councillor Young.
I believe that a family should be able to be interred together, and just because a family member, say for instance, my child that's now grown up passed away and is living in New York, I would still want his remains brought here with our family plot.
Ms. Swenson.
Again, as noted through the chair to Councillor Young, as noted in the bylaw, allowing this, which is totally up to council's discretion, but allowing that, it leads to the cemetery filling up potentially quicker with non-residents. Yeah. So while you're living, so a scenario could be that if you're living, you buy a plot and you fill that up with non-residents, you could then go buy another plot. So you've filled up plots with non-residents.
Yes, it's one of the things that we have in Qualicum Beach. In a lot of other cases, whether it's hospice, the airport, everywhere else, benefits from what the town has done. This one, you actually have to be a resident or meet the criteria. And that's the benefit of living in Qualicum Beach. You can be buried in Qualicum Beach, but you have to be a resident here, and I think that's fine. I'm not saying that should make everybody want to move here, but it's one of those things where I think there's a limited space, and we need to be careful about what we allow. Councillor Harrison.
I do think staff has sort of arrived at a good compromise where it's not hardwired in, but it does give room for council to make a decision, is my understanding. With the 4.3 is that it's a council decision as like essentially a one-off, which, fair enough. At least that's my understanding of the bylaw. Am I incorrect in that?
Yeah, I think you are incorrect on that. Once the bylaw passes, staff follows it by the book. That's when they come upstairs. I'm not sure who deals with it upstairs. Doesn't really matter, but there's the staff will follow the procedure bylaw or this bylaw exactly the way it's written. All right, Ms. Swenson.
And sorry, if I just could express that is so important for staff too, because it is hard for staff when the lines are blurred, because obviously they want to be compassionate, we all do, but to have a bylaw that we can just refer to and the public understand, it just makes everything clearer.
Yeah, and yeah, I can give you some examples of people they think, yeah, they should be, but no, there's a bylaw and we need to follow it, including my own and people that I know who would love to be buried here. No, it's not going to happen. Councillor Young.
We're a growing population, so at some point we're going to run out of cemetery space. So we would be looking for a second space when it's needed. But I am a firm advocate of a family being able to be buried together. I just I don't understand why you would separate a family when one passes away, and just because they have been living outside of Qualicum Beach, that you would not allow them to be with their parents or in the family plot.
Thank you. Further discussion. Councillor Harrison.
So I'm just really confused because I'm reading 4.3 a very particular way. I hear what I'm hearing from staff is that it's not the way I understand it. And I do apologize for my confusion. Maybe it's the post-lunch hangover of the chicken brie. I don't know. But for me, 4.3 is council may grant to a non-resident whose family member is interred in the cemetery paying the fees, et cetera. So my understanding is that you can appeal to council, but staff by default will say no. And is that incorrect? Because I thought this basically, because where I would like us to land in a position where if you want to appeal to council, fine, there'll be a staff report and we'll have a frank conversation where we're at. But I do agree too with not putting staff in the position of, I want to have my 10 relatives all interred here. And that's unreasonable. But I do think that by making it sort of like you can appeal to council, and that's my understanding. So am I incorrect in that?
Can you clarify that, Ms. Winston?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Harrison, you still need to be interred in the cemetery first. So a spouse, child can still go in there. So for example, if I pass away and I live in Qualicum Beach, I'm in the cemetery, I buy a plot, my child lives in Vancouver, my child can then go in that same plot with me, but I'm already in there. I've passed away and I'm in there. I was the Qualicum Beach resident. So as Councillor Young's example that she gave, she could buy a family plot. When she passes away, she goes in there. Her instructions could be that her family member that lives in New York can go in there as well because she's purchased the plot as a resident. The example we've been given by a member of the public is they're alive, they would like to buy a family plot, and they want to put a family member that lives in another province in there now, which the bylaw does not permit. Because they could fill that up technically as they're alive with all non-residents that live out of province and then buy another plot. So you're filling up the cemetery with non-residents.
Because the reason I would like it to be something where there is essentially, the default for the staff is no, you can't do that. And it sort of lines up with what you're saying. But in exceptional circumstances, you can go to council, is that I would like it where if it's very clear how many people are being proposed, you know, you have to basically repurchase it, blah, 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 et cetera, where it's clear the impact. Because I agree with staff that we don't want someone saying, oh, it's just one person, then, well, actually, it's actually more than that, and then it has larger impacts over time. But I do like the idea of having an escape valve because life hands us some very unfortunate things. And how should I say this? It seems a bit hard to tell someone who's been a long-time resident here, their family's here, that their family's going to be separated later on, and there's no recourse. So yeah, this is why I just have a bit of a hard time with that, just because, forgive me, like if tragedy has happened, you lose your family member and you wanted to have a family plot, then to purchase all those things beforehand, geez, I just have a hard time with that. So my apologies. That's just where I sort of differ from this iteration of the bylaw.
Thank you. I think Ms. Svensson gave a very clear example, and based on that clarification, I'm prepared to vote in favor of this. Further discussion. All in favor? Opposed? If any? Councillor Harrison, Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Young opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. Ms. Svensson.
Sorry, for clarity, that would be for passing the miscellaneous rates bylaw amendment as well that goes with the cemetery? Is that, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So now, next item on page 127 of the agenda is just a recommendation to have that council designate the committee of the whole meeting on May 27th for discussion related to parks and recreation, and also a resolution that council amend the 2026 council meeting schedule to delete the September 23rd committee of the whole meeting and reschedule a committee of the whole meeting to include both public safety and transportation on November 25th.
Can we combine the two, or do we have to have two separate motions? Council wish to make the same motion? Okay, so both items on one motion, according to staff recommendation. Discussion. Councillor Skipsey. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. Special events.
Thank you. On page 128 of your agenda package, we have a staff recommendation to approve in principle a number of special events listed from A through I. I don't think I need to read them all out. They're there before you, but if council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Special events. Councillor Vander Valk. It's moved. Councillor Harrison seconding. Discussion. Councillor Vander Valk.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that Chartwell Day, the Chartwell Residents Association has asked that that be changed to September the 12th. So it will read September the 12th.
Okay. Minor amendment?
Yes.
So all in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. Remuneration review. Ms. Vincent, pretty clear.
Thank you. Yes, on page 139 of your package is the staff report for review for council remuneration, and the recommendation is that mayor and council remuneration remain at the rates established in the town of Qualicum Beach bylaw, subject to the annual consumer price index increase per the bylaw. It's required that we review this prior to, in the year of the local election, so the bylaw is there for council for discussion.
Discussion.
So I do have little nitpicking things about this overall, but again, we had the long conversation about how much time staff have. So I would just go with just receiving this for information, essentially. I don't think do we have to move that we accept the current rates, or can we just receive for information? Ms. Svensson?
Well,
I'd recommend
it's a staff recommendation that we remain at the rates established.
And I'll move the staff recommendation then.
Thank you. Councillor Skipsey seconding. Councillor Vander Valk. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. And then closed meeting motions.
That is just there for the public's awareness. Those are motions that council asked to be rise and report on at an appropriate time.
Thank you. Operations, ALFA Aero Solutions. Mr. Goldfuss, you've been waiting so patiently.
Thank you, Your Worship.
The spotlight is literally on you.
Thank you. This recommendation is to enter into a one-year contract with ALFA Aero Solutions. The purpose of that contract, Your Worship, would be to, the equipment would collect data on ADSB equipped aircraft. And just for council's information, ADSB stands for Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcasts. So basically what ADSB is it's GPS. So that ADSB system is commuting to satellites, and it brings back data. So at the end of the 12-month period, staff would be in a position to provide a report to council on our findings with respect to the number of ADSB-equipped aircraft that use the Qualicum Beach Airport.
Councillor Skipsey.
I just have a question as to whether or not we need to make part of the recommendation that staff prepare a report and provide a report to council at the end of 12 months? Nope. I'm getting a no.
I think that was expected. That's a given that we would get a report. But you're right, it's fair to draw attention to it, but we do expect a report after 1 year.
Do I move the recommendation?
Councillor Skipsey moved the recommendation. Councillor Vander Valk seconding. Discussion. All in favor? Oh, sorry, I saw you were voting early.
No. Just one question, if I may, through the chair. So for this service, if it's something that, for whatever reason, we decide to continue, would the rate remain the same, or is this something where we're getting essentially like a teaser rate in year one?
Mr. Goldfuss.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through the chair to Councillor Harrison. That's a really good question. I'm glad you bring it up because this equipment is only for the purpose of collecting data for ADSB equipment. So I'll provide an example. At the end of the year, when staff provides a report on the number of ADSB-equipped aircraft that have used the airport, we would look at that data and we would provide the numbers, at which point there would be recommendations. Right now they're hypothetical, but there'd be recommendations. So let's assume that a recommendation would be for council that there was enough aircraft that used the airport that were equipped with ADSB, and staff would provide in that report, for an example, hypothetically again, that a recommendation would be for council to direct staff to look at moving to the next step. That next step would then be to get a hold of Alpha Aero Solutions and determine what other type of equipment, infrastructure would have to be put in place at the airport to start charging fees for landings, touch and goes, an example like that. So does that help answer your question?
More or less, yes.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Just one last point, if I may, Your Worship.
Sure.
Sorry. For this, I do recall the earlier staff report saying, don't expect a lot of information from this, as the sort of smaller planes we use don't always use the systems that would connect to this system, essentially, is my understanding. So we might not get as much data as we like, but you know, I do understand why some people have particular issues with particular uses at the airport. So this seems like a reasonable approach to try it for 1 year. We'll see what the data is. And then if folks are disappointed with how little data there is, well, then there's an easy council decision to make. But I think we're probably better served to try. For the $5,500, it's not unreasonable expense.
Thank you. And that was moved and seconded. Further discussion. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Goldfuss. Planning, Mr. Seals.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. I do have a presentation, if you can just pull it up. And I don't have the clicker here, but there's only a few slides, so no need to get up. This is next steps on the Eaglecrest Golf Course project. Oh, there we go. I do have a clicker. Take that back. And it provides an overview of the way that we'd like to engage the public to explore neighborhood planning for Eaglecrest, and then specifically hone in on the specific parcel that we're going to be preparing for disposition this year. So council will recall the engagement that went on last year, very extensive, nine community groups, 900 responses on the survey, very well attended open house. This year, we will be engaging the public on neighborhood scale planning, as noted. So we're going to be looking at the transportation patterns, active transportation, walking loops, recreation, those types of things at a high level. So, you know, just understanding the neighborhood as a whole and the way it functions, because that type of context is extremely valuable when you look at a single parcel. So we want to put some guidelines in place on the land that the town will be disposing of this year, and to do that well, we need to understand the neighborhood context. We will not be engaging the public on revisiting decisions that council made last year. We will also not be focusing extensively on the parkland. We can talk about park and, you know, general community values and things like that, but we want to do park planning with all effort behind it, and it's not this year. So that'll be a future year. We're not going to be engaging the public on golf course operations. So once again, just want to clearly define what we're engaging on and what we're not. We are going to be starting engagement in February and March. Eaglecrest Residents Association will be the primary starting point for that discussion. We will also be having side meetings with the immediate neighbors to the parcel that we're going to be disposing of, because they certainly have the most at play in this scenario. So we want to make sure we understand their values. Hopefully that will land us in May with a recommendation to issue a request for proposals, or, you know, take those next steps in actually disposing of the parcels. So that's an overview of the public engagement for this year, and we just wanted to make sure that council was supportive of the overall approach before we started really jumping into the community meetings and the surveys that are anticipated. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Councillor Vander.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, for February 2026 online engagement, so exactly what would that be? Is that like a survey of the town?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Vander. That survey hasn't been developed yet, but it's going to address some of those neighborhood scale issues, like priorities for, you know, say, walking loops, transportation, traffic, form and character. So it's going to be the online parallel of the in-person engagements that we're going to be doing. But we're going to launch the survey first.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, you're having meetings specifically with Eaglecrest residents. That's separate from this online or in-person process for the rest of the town. Is that correct, or is it all combined?
Thank you. Let me just go through these again, because I went through this slide a little bit too fast. So in February, we will be doing focused engagement with the Eaglecrest Residents Association in a small group format. They're going to help us, make sure that that's well represented, not only of the residents associations, but other residents that they know of that have those interests. We will be doing online engagement with the broader community, so anyone can respond to the online survey. That's not going to be limited. Also in February, we're going to be starting engagement with the immediate neighbors, because we want to make sure that we discuss with them separately from everyone else. In March, that online engagement will continue, so that's engagement with the broader community, both about the neighborhood values and also the parcel-specific planning. In April, this is the part I didn't get to the first time I went through this slide, there will be a large format public open house or town hall style meeting. We haven't specifically planned what that's going to look like, but that will be in April. So everyone will have a chance to participate, whether it's in person or online, or whether it's in small group neighborhood or broader community. So we want to make sure there's opportunities in a variety of different formats. Councillor Miranda Valk, did that answer your question?
For the most part, I'm just wondering if other residents associations will also be engaged separately from the overall, or is it just Eaglecrest?
Thank you. Through the chair. As it's planned right now, it's only Eaglecrest that would have the side meetings in February. And yes, thank you.
I'm just wondering if we have a real estate agency already in the doorway there, or have we deferring that to a later date? Have we picked someone yet?
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Young. For the large parcel that we're anticipating selling, it will likely be through a request for proposals and not listed through a conventional MLS system. But that's a decision that council hasn't made yet, and that would be taken to council in a future meeting. Thank you.
So one of my big things with this is we basically have two competing interests with the town's position. One is, what is the best fit for Eaglecrest? The other is, how do we generate enough funds to do all the things we want to do? And the two don't always align perfectly. So we've had a lot of requests from the community about what are basically the costs we're trying to cover through these land sales. And while I don't want us to be in a position where we're giving away exactly what we expect every property to go for, I do think that we have a lot of information of what is the minimum threshold we need to raise if we're not going to resort to taxation. And I'm curious, because we've said multiple times, yep, we're going to produce it, we're going to produce it. Do we have a rough idea of when? Because I think these conversations of what needs to be built loop directly into how much money we need to raise. And if we aren't telling the public how much money we need to raise, they might have expectations that are either, how should I say this, more broad in terms of what we need to do, or too little in terms of what we need to do to account for those costs. So I'm not sure which staff person wants to respond.
I just would like to say something about that. We might need higher density to make this thing work. And we went through a zoning procedure last fall to try and make that happen. If we tie our hands too much at what we can allow for development, if there's too much green space, no multifamily, none of this stuff, it's going to be very hard to raise the money that we think we could raise to do all the things that we said we would do. First of all, buy the golf course, $8.5 million, minus the $2 million donation. Then we have to do the golf course improvements and the clubhouse improvements. And we said that's around $2.5 million. Then we talked about traffic safety solutions, some drainage issue, traffic solutions, walkability and all that throughout the area. So there is it's hard to put an exact number on it, but we do have to be realistic. And we also have to, like any landowner, work with the facts and how much you can expect and how much you need. And so as landowners, as a community, we also need to be realistic at what we can afford to build, what we cannot afford to build. So it's going to be a decision by council to approve a development proposal that we will, as you said, we're going to a request for proposals. That decision will come to this table. We'll get input, but we will have to make that decision. And I think we all made a commitment that we won't raise taxes, we won't borrow money, we'll pay for it from the proceeds from the sale of the land, of the properties that we don't need for the 9-hole golf course. And I'll let staff add to that if in case I didn't cover the right, Mrs. Fabrilla.
Yes, I think your points are totally valid, Your Worship. Council hasn't decided what projects you're funding from which land sales. So yes, you have those high-level targets, but you're the ones who will decide, are you funding these capital projects from land sales? Are you funding, what is the traffic solution you're going to fund? Is it a multi-million-dollar roundabout, or is it lights that we just don't have the costing yet? So I want to make sure the public isn't thinking we're holding back these numbers. We're actively seeking costing on multiple components of this equation right now. So it's not that we have the numbers, we're just keeping them in our pocket. We're actively seeking costing and clarification so that we can bring things to council for their decision making. Thank you, Your Worship.
Just 2 brief points. One, I don't think I said that I'm not going to raise taxes for this because I didn't want to buy it in the first place. But secondly, too, we do have some hard figures, and we do have some vague estimates. And I do think it would behoove us, when we're starting this process, to at least clarify, this is the data we have, this is the data we're seeking, here's the order of magnitude estimate, and then a rough idea. I do think that if we go through this process, everyone says, well, this is the zoning we'd like to see. They have no idea of how much money is involved. They've just heard everything's going to be paid for through land sales. So they think, oh, just a bunch of nice single-family homes, I'll take care of everything and we'll be fine. And then it turns around that we need to do something radically different because council decides that we're going to cover everything through land sales, and the bill could be very high, 10-something million. I just worry that folks might feel that they hadn't been heard at all. And so that's why I really think it is important to give the public, when we're doing this information session, if not a precise figure. I understand that anytime you're doing engineering, it's an imperfect art and there's a lot of work to get a really precise figure. But even a rough ballpark figure of this value to this value, that I think would actually be in our interest, given that we are going to have to pay those fees eventually, whether it's through land sales in the next couple of years, whether it's through taxes in 5 years, whether it's through something else eventually. This is all the work that needs to be done. Here's how much money it's going to cost roughly. I do understand we don't have to advance anything necessarily right away, but those are going to be liabilities eventually we're going to have to pay off. We can't just say, we know we have to do a traffic solution, but we're not going to do anything because we don't have the money, ever. Like that's a bit of a bait and switch. So I just do feel quite strongly, you've heard multiple requests in the community, can you tell us how much all this is going to cost us? And I think if we just even provide rough figures, that would be beneficial for the community.
Mr. Seals.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Westbrook. And I think it's helpful to repeat things that have been said before in terms of the town's commitment that the expenses on this project will balance the revenues from the project. And that, ideally, that happens on an annual basis. And so what I would certainly tell people is that, we know what the purchase price was, $8.5 million. We've said before that we estimate a cost of $2.5 million to reconfigure the golf course and do those upgrades. There's servicing costs on top of that, which we don't fully know, right? There's some variability there. And on the other hand, we have revenues from the individual parcels that council has identified. We're not engaging the public because those are already in way. And then we have the large parcel that we anticipate selling this year. The important thing is that what I just described, those revenues and those expenses are roughly equivalent. So if you add more expenses, it doesn't balance anymore. And if you lower revenues, it doesn't balance anymore. So I think describing the town's approach to ensuring that they meet each other this year, I think that's probably the most meaningful way to respond to people when they ask, because we don't know 100% what the costs are, and we can't say for certain what the sales prices will be. But they're roughly equivalent, and that's how we're approaching it for this year. Thank you.
I just point out, though, that knowing what I know, I don't think they are equivalent in the long run when we do everything. If we did everything we wanted to do, I'm not saying we have to, but if we chose to do everything all at once, we are not going to raise enough revenue, even through the proposed zoning we have. Unless someone massively overbids, which, hey, if you want to, go, I encourage you to do so. But that's just why I think, like, just order of magnitude costs would be very important, because I think a lot of citizens don't understand how much revenue land sales generate. They don't understand what the costs are, and they're just going in blind. And so I just think that we're going to set up a process where people are going to be very disappointed with the outcome. That's just why I'm being cautious. I'm not saying we have to have a precise number. I know how much staff work is going to go into getting a precise number. That's not something we can do. But to not even just share some of the costs that we know that we're on the other side, I'm not sure I support that.
Okay, thank you. I think it's also important to keep in mind that there's probably some aspects of work that is going to be done in Eaglecrest that's separate from work that would be done because of the golf course. So I think that needs to be separated as well. And for example, the improvements along the highway, that's not necessarily tied into the sale or the purchase of the golf course. So I don't know if there's a way that we can make that separation clear, or drainage issues, that's not only in the golf course, that's a larger problem in all of Eaglecrest, and it needs to be made clear that the purchase of the golf course and the sale of the lands to pay for that is separate from a lot of those other issues.
Thank you, Your Worship. So council was just introduced to your capital program a week ago, and two of those projects that weren't related specifically to the golf course, the funding source from those was from sale of land. That's what's built into your financial plan now. So I might ask the Director of Finance to revisit that section for the benefit of the public and council if you weren't clear on those two projects and their proposed funding sources. But again, there is the decisions such as those are still before council. It is unfair to provide information to the public while council has not made the decisions it has to make. The variance in just the traffic solution alone potential is huge. Until council gives us these directions, we can't share information accurately without speculating. And nowhere have I, in my 15 years as a CAO, speculated on when providing information to the public. So I think we need to be very careful about the integrity of our engagement, the integrity of the information we're sharing. It's very clear that council wants to share information with the public. We want to hear from the public. A lot of the values that we want to talk about are the things that are important to the community that the director has referred to: green space, transportation, circulation, those things. The costing pieces are coming. I know people are anxious about it, but the direction we have from staff right now, even the $2.5 million to rebuild the golf course, we don't know that yet. So again, as these numbers are ground truth, we will share them with council, and you can provide direction to share them. It's not our job to share them. You need to receive the information first, beyond speculation or theory. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are getting pushed and questioned by members of the public. I can see that. They just have to be patient. Just be patient and let us do our job. When we have the information, we'll share it. But I keep asking the same questions, when, how much? That is one of the most frustrating things for us as a town, staff and council, when we don't have the answers yet and we don't want to speculate, like Ms. Farrella said. We just bought this place basically December 1st. We're about 7 weeks into it. We're trying to work these things out. So bear with us and have some patience. When we have the information, we won't be holding back. We'll share it. Thank you. So anything else for this report, Ms. Sales?
Mayor Westbrook, there is a recommendation for council to endorse the over-review, just so we're sure that everyone's on the same page. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Skipsey moved, Councillor Vandervalk seconding. Discussion. Councillor Harrison.
Yes, I won't be supporting the staff recommendation because I don't see a clear indication we'll be talking about what the order of magnitude is for the costs we're trying to recover. And when I look back to the public hearing, where we had a lot of public participation, I think the public was pretty clear about what they wanted for Eaglecrest, which is the least financially viable option, but that is what the public wanted. And that's not really the direction we went because we prioritized trying to make the golf course whole financially. But I do think this is, if we're going to be doing outreach, we should be providing citizens with better information. And I reject the idea that it's speculation, it's estimates. And there is degree of clarity about estimates. Is it 100% accurate with an RFP that's gone out and you have the estimate for the project before you, or do you have a rough order of magnitude? Projects of this nature generally cost in the range of this to this. And I think you could be transparent about these costs are roughly in the order of 1.5 to 2.5 million. Cost to be determined subject to future council decision making. And that's being a little bit more transparent and gives people an idea of what is the ballpark, the best case, worst case scenario we're looking at. Because I think that's going to have a massive impact on what is approved for the density. I also think, and I'm just going to be really blunt, I've opposed the sale from day one, but I think you'll have a lot more buy-in for more density if you let people know how much money we really need to raise. If they think we're just buying for the golf course, the $6 million-ish for the golf course, and the course improvements, they don't understand everything else, they might be very surprised because in their view, oh, we could probably be fine if we just do single-family homes for only that. So I just disagree with the idea that we'll tell you afterwards what we're really trying to do, because I do think that that financial piece is going to be key to our decision making. So that's just why I'll be voting against this.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just a note that the RFP closes for the golf course on Monday. So again, we're still in the process of getting those numbers. As was referred to, we could see $1 million variables. So as we get those facts, we'll bring them to council and staff will take their direction accordingly.
Sorry, we should talk about going over 3 hours. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, Ms. Svensson. My apologies. I only noticed the clock now. And
So I know that with Group 1, there is going to be no more consultation because it says it is consistent with the neighborhood. So can I just get clarification, because I just heard today that we might need more density in order to realize the funding that we need. So will Group 1 still be consistent with the neighborhood as it is right now, or are we going to increase the density?
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Young, the zoning on those parcels will not change. So it has the same, as the neighboring parcels. Thank you.
Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Harrison opposed. Motion carries. And I think that's the end of our meeting today. Just past 3 hours.
motion to close?
Pardon?
Motion to close, I think.
Do we need to go in camera? Oh, we do. I'm sorry. Thank you. Motion to go in closed session. Councillor Harrison, Councillor Vandervalk, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.